This meeting, Texas. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Texas State Board of Examiners of Professional Counselors. Today is Friday, September 20th, 2024 at 9:04 a.m. and we're meeting in person today at the George H.W. Bush Building in Austin. For roll call, we'll do a little bit of extra information on the board members because of our new member. I'll start down here on my left with Ms. Winston.
Okay, I'm Jen Winston from Lufkin, Texas, a public member, also a psych grad student. So,
Dr. Muna.
I'm Dr. Muna, professional member, Texas A&M University, Central Texas employee.
Good job. My name is Dr. Christopher Taylor. I'm the vice chair, professional member, and I am in Dallas.
Stephen Hallbauer, chair. I am a public member. I'm a private practice attorney in Rockwall.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Loretta Bradley. I live in Lubbock, Texas, and am a faculty member at Texas Tech. And I'm a professional member on the board.
Good morning, Dr. Janie Stubblefield. I am a professional member coming to you from Dallas, Texas.
And our new guy, Sean.
Good morning. My name is Sean Shakarami. I'm from Hazlet, Texas, TCU alum. I'm a healthcare management consultant, CPA by trade, and happy to be here as a public member. Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Sean. It's good to have you. Let's go. Ms. Hall, will you introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Good morning. I'm Vanessa Hall. I'm a graduate student counselor at a nonprofit in Houston, Texas.
Thank you. And Ms. Campanone. Off mute, please. There you go.
All right, Brenda Compagnone, professional member from San Antonio, Texas.
Thanks, everybody. We have our full board today. Not obviously that certifies our quorum. Christina, please introduce the staff members.
Sure. My name is Christina DeLuna. I'm the board administrator for the LPC board. We also have Brenda Skiff, the executive assistant. We also have, or do you want to go ahead and introduce? Okay. We have Patrick Hyde, the general counsel, and Robert Romig, deputy executive director.
Thanks, everybody. We will move forward with item number 3, public comment, and we will take public comment first from the people who are here today in person based on the order that they signed up. I will reiterate that you have 3 minutes to make your public comment. You have 3 minutes. Patrick, can you give the can you keep time and give them a 30-second warning, please? Thank you. So you can call.
Thank you for the opportunity. All right. First person we have, I believe, is Ann Watts. If I said the name wrong, I apologize. Please be sure to introduce yourself and who you're representing, if it's yourself or an organization.
Hello there. I am Ann Rogers Watson, otherwise known as Kip. I represent myself, my private practice. I'm an LPCS certified high performance coach. I've been in this field for 23 years, and our professional environment has taken a significant change over those 23 years, and I believe headed in a very horrific and evil direction. Ethics in this profession are paramount, and due to liberal DEI indoctrination agenda, our profession is now normalizing abnormal, teaching and educating therapists and students to aid and abet mental illness and affirm anything and everything. This is dangerous. This is opening the doors to serious lawsuits, and it's continuing the degradation and dismantling of the psychological fields. Example number 1. Expansive Education, a CEU provider, now offers a course entitled Understanding Age Play in Adult Babies, an introduction for helping professionals. This course explores the intricacies, quote unquote, of age play, helping adults engage in personas not aligned with their chronological age, such as a 40-year-old playing a pre-verbal child or a 36-year-old acting as a grandparent. It examines the misunderstandings and stigma by professionals and how professionals can gain ways to support their clients who practice age play activities. Example number 2, a licensed therapist advertised working with an experienced kink educator to develop therapist CEU trainings for kink-aware professionals. Quote unquote, we're developing special topic courses on kink and spirituality, power exchange, safety in rope bondage, and trauma-informed care for non-monogamous clients with attachment trauma. Example number 3, a licensed therapist asked for a referral for in one of our professional forums for a minor child who is struggling with gender dysphoria. The therapist wants a supportive trans referral, but asked that the referral not tell the parents because the parents are not supportive of a child being trans. These therapists are making DEI CEUs based on fetishes. This is not what a therapist professional is called to do. Trauma-informed care for non-monogamous clients with attachment trauma is an oxymoron. Let's keep traumatizing them with more non-monogamy. This is normalizing mental illness, killing our profession, and generating an incredible divide
that's 3 minutes.
racially
Thank you.
and ideology.
Thank you.
Please repeal cultural awareness, 3-hour
Ma'am, I'm sorry,
requirement,
but your 3
and
minutes are up.
50% approved provider requirement.
Thank you.
Next person we have is Lori Hollingsworth.
Good morning. We had somebody come in, so I don't know if they were able to sign in. Right. Good morning, Chair Hallbauer, board members, and the Texas BHEC staff. I am Dr. Lori Hollingsworth. I'm a licensed professional counselor supervisor and president of the Texas Mental Health Counselors Association, TMCA, a division of the Texas Counseling Association and a state chapter of the American Mental Health Counselors Association. Thank you for this opportunity to make a public comment. Once again, I am a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Texas. I also have another license, a driver's license, which is issued by the Department of Public Safety in Texas. In essence, my driver's license is a form of an interstate compact. It allows me to drive in any other state of the U.S. with the understanding that I must adhere to the state laws of that state where I'm driving. To be clear, no state in the U.S. has any jurisdiction in mandating the laws that the Department of Public Safety in Texas must enforce on Texas residents, which would be similar to how the Interstate Counseling Compact would operate. By not being a member of the Interstate Counseling Compact, counselors are limited in providing continuity of care and services for their clients. While we live in a time where our clients are mobile, some are going off to attend universities, others, their job is taking them from place to place on scheduled intervals, and for others, their parents are in the military, being reassigned to another location. TMCA encourages the board to support the resolution in Texas joining the Interstate Counseling Compact so that counselors in Texas can offer continuity of care or at least a healthy handoff to other service providers rather than an abrupt termination. In addition, TMCA looks forward to supporting avenues to address the workforce shortages in the counseling profession and any measures that streamline the licensing process in Texas as long as the highest level of quality of supervision is kept intact. TMCA believes supervision, mentorship, and continuing education on diversity and ethics helps to develop all the facets of skills and knowledge needed to retain new counselors in the profession
30 seconds.
for a lifetime career rather than a quick fix to address the shortages in mental health providers. Lastly, Tomka is pleased to serve as the facilitator for the LPC board members panel presentation at the TCA Professional Growth Conference in Dallas on October the 31st. I appreciate the board's time today in serving the citizens of the great state of Texas. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When did we get the music?
Is this a new touch? Or?
It did it with the first
Yeah,
one
it
too.
comes with a timer.
Wow.
Give her a trophy or something. Come on.
Christina, who do we have next?
Next person we have is Diane Smedley.
Music too, just. One of you can just sing, it'll be fine. Ooh, that's loud. Okay. Good morning, Chair Hallbauer, board members and staff. My name is Dr. Diane Smedley. I'm a counselor educator. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist supervisor as of this summer. I also serve for TASIS as liaison to the LPC board, and I am just grateful to be able to make comment today. So first, on behalf of our president-elect, Dr. Melissa Alvarado, I want to extend a formal invitation to the board and staff to our TASIS Midwinter Conference in 2025. It'll be held in downtown Austin on February 27th and 28th. We request the board provide an update on February 27th, and I'll send more details as that gets closer. In the next couple weeks, I'll have everything hammered out. Okay. Second, I want to applaud the board for their continued support with the Interstate Compact and confronting our workforce shortage. While I acknowledge that the current resolutions in the board agenda are drafts that need to still be passed, both documents demonstrate thoughtful and intentional considerations of both problems and potential solutions. I want to close by urging board members to consider how to strengthen our workforce in ways that both protect the welfare of the state of Texas citizens and maintain a strong workforce. So recently I've spent time analyzing the data from the BHEC workforce study. I was able, y'all, I'm very much appreciative that you put the raw data out there. I was able to pull out and look at just LPCs. And yes, I will tell you that some of them said they were planning to become supervisors and are just writing out that 5-year requirement. And of those, a few did find the 5-year requirement to be excessive. However, the almost 3,000 respondents stated 3 top reasons for why they don't become supervisors. And those were too much liability and risk, leaving the profession due to burnout, and work-related financial constraints. Can we lower the 5-year requirement to 3 and get a bump in supervisors temporarily? Sure, I believe we would. But in the great words of Desmond Tutu, all we end up doing is pulling more people out of the river downstream. If we want to stop people from falling in that river, then stakeholders and the board need to collectively work together to consider how we can address liability concerns, workforce burnout, and pay parity to increase not only the number of supervisors, but the number of supervisors who remain long-term in the field. Thank you for your time today and your continued service to the citizens of Texas.
Thank you.
You didn't get it because you didn't go to 3 minutes. All right, next person we have is Philip Crum.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Philip Crum. I'm a Texas citizen and co-founder of AMP. And in light of the quadrennial review, I did a little digging into the origins of the diversity requirement, and here's what I found. Number one, there are no Texas laws requiring that BHEC licensees take diversity courses. That's an optional thing. Number two, the state of Texas is actively moving away from the woke DEI initiatives as evidenced by Senate Bills 14, 16, and 17, but our board seems to be embracing DEI initiatives through required diversity education. I find that puzzling. Number three, the diversity requirement was originally suggested through a non-binding report from the statewide Health Coordinating Council, which made it sound like it was to address a workforce shortage. Now, I'm going to assume that based on comments by BHEC staff in the past 60 days that this workforce shortage issue hasn't changed much since you added the diversity requirement to alleviate the workforce shortage problem almost 2 years ago. And number 4, here's the original recommendation from the report. Quote, while the demand for services continues to grow, the need for culturally competent services will become more apparent. Policies and rules are needed to require continuing education across all types of providers to ensure that this training does not continue to be optional. Mental health professions have not adequately recruited individuals from diverse ethnic and cultural backgrounds, end quote. It's quite obvious to me anyway from that reading that what they want is not an increase in headcount. They want to force current licensees to be all things to all people, even if it runs afoul of their protected conscience rights. See Senate Bill 16. Then they lay the blame for the workforce shortage at the feet of licensees as if academia isn't the one doing the recruiting. So they have a righteous reason to require diversity training from the counselors. Number 5, I never heard anyone from the board claim that this diversity requirement was added to alleviate a workforce shortage. That tells me it was a cover story just to get it passed. And number 6, somewhere in the approval process, it became apparent that this requirement was going to be problematic to a large number of licensees. So you added a workaround, but not limited to, so you could avoid any legal issues related to conscience rights by simply saying, but you can take anything you want. If the BHEC staff is going to be very lenient as to what counts as diversity, why is the rule necessary at all? If everything counts, we didn't need a rule before to make it acceptable to this board to take a CE workshop on
30 seconds.
bondage, queer, or kinky queer bondage, or any number of other sexual perversion topics and call that a counseling education. We could do that. They were free to take that before you implemented the diversity requirement. So why do we need the rule? Does the ham-fisted recommendation to require an ongoing cultural diversity camp mean that academia is graduating incompetent grads in this area right now? Because if they're competent, then why do we need the training? You created this mess, and you have an opportunity right now during the quad review.
Thank you, Mr. Crum.
To clean it up and blame it on the
Thank you,
legislature.
Mr.
if
Crum.
you have to. Done. Thank you. Okay.
Next public comment we have is Kathleen Meals.
I'm Kathleen Mills, licensed professional counselor supervisor and co-founder of AMP. I want my profession back. I want my peers to recognize that there's far more to practice of mental health than conversation and another pill, but that'll be up to them. I want my clients to stop interviewing me just to find out if I'm safe to help their kids, or if I'm going to go woke on them to try to have their kids taken away. People are scared of us. I want my board to limit my CEs to what the state law requires, plus 5 more hours of ethics. I think it's a good idea that we know our rule book for obvious reasons. I want other counselors to stop their verbal and written attacks on any counselor or group who doesn't subscribe to their woke line of thinking or even question it. Your diversity requirement is fueling that, and we want it repealed. I want the board to stay out of my career management business. My clients and I know better than you do what we need. You mind your career, I'll take care of mine. I want the board to repeal the supervisor refresher requirement as redundant. As a supervisor, every course I take is with the idea that I can utilize what I learned in the training of my associates. The 6 hours that you required by vetted licensees is not necessary to tell us in a separate forum. I want you to stop adopting DEI initiatives that the state is actually moving away from, and a large percentage of us find highly offensive. Stop aiding in the normalization of mental health problems in the name of diversity. I want my freedom back to choose my CE topics without having to resort to endless workarounds of poorly thought out rules. I want you to stop telling me I'm, quote, but not limited to only taking 24 hours, end quote, as if money grows on trees. I find that elitist attitude very condescending. I want you to repeal the 50% requirement. The assumption that quality material can only be generated by academia, government, and associations is highly insulting. It's a slap in the face to every intelligent soul that pours themselves into the creation of quality content for this profession. The fact there was no outstanding CE problem to solve when you implemented this absolute beast clearly proves that it was implemented to make academia and the associates happy. Is that really your job? I want my profession back. So
30
associates-
seconds.
I want my profession back so the associates that don't give up in grad school or after, there's your workforce problem, have a fighting chance at carving out a successful career helping people without the fear of being shot at or assaulted at an unhinged licensee at a conference. I want my board to realize that the times we're living in are not business as usual and won't be for quite some time. I would appreciate your consideration. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Next person is going to be Noah Jones.
Good morning, board members. I just wanted to take a few opportunities here. I am Noah Jones, the public policy analyst for the Texas Counseling Association. I'm new at the organization, so I just wanted to say hello. You're going to be seeing a lot of me for the future. Second of all, I just want to remind members of the board and members in general about TCA's Professional Growth Conference that's going to be happening in Dallas on the first week of November. We are very pleased to have some of the board members in attendance. We are very happy to have y'all do a panel to help remind members about their responsibilities and kind of discuss the current issues happening for LPCs out in the field. It's very good to connect names to faces in general around here. We also just wanted to note that we noticed on the agenda today was the discussion for potential adoption of a resolution regarding Texas's membership in the Interstate Counseling Compact. We just wanted to thank the board for their consideration of this because we do believe it is one of the best solutions to make Texas a better place for LPCs to practice. As I'm sure many of the board members know, Texas has 248 of our 254 counties under a designation as a mental health workplace shortage area. We believe that the compact will allow members to practice more freely, and we believe that will allow counselors to finally go into these areas where we've seen some of these workforce gaps. So we just wanted to thank the board for their consideration of that, and we just want to appreciate the opportunity to speak at these meetings, especially as one of the trade organizations here. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who may have come in after the sign-in sheet that is wanting to do public comment? Anyone else? Okay. Anyone online by Zoom, please raise your hand using the Zoom function, and we will go ahead and call on you to submit your public comment. Again, it is 3 minutes related to the public comment, and this is not on any of the cases that we'll be hearing today. This is simply public comment. First person we're going to hear is Rhonda Kimball.
Hi, good morning, board. I'm Rhonda Kimball, LPC. And just want to speak to you. I went to the town meeting and the Lunch and Learns and have a couple of issues. Once again, I'm going to bring it to you. I want, and I'm sure many LPCs want, that PhD, put it on your license, repealed. Again, it causes division. It's that academia again, just creeping in. Let us teach you. We're smarter than you. And there are distinctions with insurance companies. One says master's level counselor, and the other says, oh, doctor. Sorry to offend all the doctors that speak. I want to speak to the TCA, and you keep asking about this compact, but this board has nothing to do with the compact. That you would have to get with the legislature. So I'm not really sure what that's about, and thank you for promoting your conference. But if you are promoting this kind of diversity, calling sexual deviance and mental illness diversity, I've got a problem belonging to your association and being associated in any way with it. And this board should be monitoring that. In the town hall meeting in the Lunch and Learn, one of the state representatives said, "Well, it's not my job to police what people say. If we are being threatened on an online platform, it certainly is. And you guys need to update your policies." So Robert, you said you're just about to wrap things up. I want that PhD thing repealed. It has nothing to do with being a counselor. And two, you guys have to consider with these rules, how are you going to police, or a nicer word, monitor your LPCs in these internet platforms? We're being threatened. We're being threatened by these people you're promoting if we don't agree with transgender, with mutilating children. Listen, we don't believe in it. A lot of us who are Christians, I'm a Jesus follower, I don't believe it's okay. And I need somebody representing me on this board. I also want to talk about truth in advertising. If you say you're faith-based, then indicate what your faith is. Just like if I'm a doctor, you have to say, if my doctor, Jeannie Stubblefield, is in divinity, you have to put that on your webpage. You can't say you're a doctor of psychology. You can't misrepresent yourself to the public. This is moral ethics, guys. So truth in advertising on everybody's webpage needs what
30
faith?
seconds.
Am I a Satanist? Because if I am, it needs to stay that, because as a Christian, I don't want to go to those people. I need to know who I'm going to. Conversion therapy goes both ways. I can't give the gospel to my clients, but somebody can tell me, oh, here, cut your penis off. Here, let's worship Satan, or let's worship nature and then become a witch. This is what is happening, people, to our children. You are the police. That's why you sit on this board and you take our issues to the
Thank you, ma'am.
executive board.
Next, Christina.
Next person we have is Dr. Dawn Irons.
My name is Dr. Dawn Irons. I'm a counselor educator with Liberty University and an LPC supervisor in Denver City, Texas. I am asking the board to repeal the current CE diversity training requirement for the following reasons. The required graduate level curriculum has already trained counselors licensed in Texas in diversity coursework, and there is no law on the books that requires ongoing training in this area. With no legislative reasons for this new rule, it appears to be an agenda-driven DEI initiative. The current requirements are often morally objectionable to the conscience of a religious and spiritual population of counselors. The Texas Religious Freedom Reformation Act protects counselors from moral injury and having their consciences violated. The idea of conscience protections in America goes back to James Madison over 250 years ago. He viewed our individual religious moral beliefs as having the same property rights as other possessions of any U.S. citizen. As Madison put it, Americans have, quote, equal title to the free exercise of religion according to the dictates of their conscience. He further promoted inalienable and core natural rights that include freedom of conscience. The Moral Injury Project of Syracuse University defines moral injury as the damage done to one's conscience or moral compass when the person perpetrates, witnesses, or fails to prevent acts that transgress one's moral beliefs, values, ethical codes of conduct. As someone who has previously taught in secular universities, I've witnessed the unbridled willingness to inflict moral injury on faculty and students with the dogmatic teachings regarding gender-affirming care and the intense pressure to write letters for the surgical mutilation of children as a form of social justice. More recently and relevantly, the Texas legislature passed laws with Senate Bill 14, making gender-affirming care for minors 17 ban DEI training and hiring initiatives in the Texas college system. With the state of Texas moving away from the DEI agenda-driven issues, why are BHEC and the LPC board running head-on in to support these issues and making
30
diversity
seconds.
CE requirement? The state legislature created laws to shut these practices down. In Senate Bill 16, lawmakers state the position on conscience protections rights for the healthcare practitioners. We need to stay in lockstep with what the state legislature is doing. Please repeal the 50% rule as well. I need the freedom to choose where I get my CE training. As institutions that push DEI agendas like professional
Thank you, ma'am. Next comment, please.
Dr. Lewis, were you wanting to provide public comment or were you wanting to comment related to your case? Dr. Lewis, were you wanting to provide public comment?
Yes, I do. I
Okay.
do.
Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Dr. John Lewis. I have lived and practiced as a professional counselor in Singapore for over 30 years. I'm a clinical member, and I did my master's degree in 2005. Now, I moved to America and I just got a green card. My reason for moving is because my wife, who is a Texan, has to move back to look after her parents. They're now almost 90 years old. So because she followed me for over 30 years in Asia, I felt it was only right that I follow her back to Texas. I want to continue my profession as a professional. So I approached the board, and the board said, the first thing you need to do is sit for the exam. I sat for the exam and I saw all the subjects that I have to bring myself up to speed. I studied for it. I also realized I've actually studied for it all when I did my master's and my PhD in the UK. I finished my PhD in 2018.
Mr. Lewis,
And
you're going to have an opportunity to speak about your pending case during the next agenda item. This is public comment at this time.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought this was my turn.
You're going to
My
be allotted.
apologies.
You're going to be allotted 3 minutes to speak directly on your case in the next agenda item.
Okay. All right. My apologies.
Thank you.
The only other, we have a phone call ending in 9560. If you are wanting to speak, it's star 67, I believe. Oh, star 6, just star 6. It appears that is all the public comment that we have today.
Last chance. Anyone else out in the audience?
Mm.
Okay. Seeing none, and that everyone on Zoom is wrapped up. Okay, that will conclude public comment. Thanks everyone for your thoughts. Before we move on to item number 4, let's introduce our executive director, Mr. Spinks.
Kind of anticlimactic here, but good morning, Mr. Chair, little board members.
Yes, we enjoy having you here in person. So good to see you, Daryl. Let's go ahead and move on to item number 4. These are application review and denials. Christina, please introduce our first item, Ms. Lemming.
Yes, we will be hearing about Courtney Lemming's case, and I know she is on today. The board members were provided with the material related to her case. Ms. Lemming, you will have 3 minutes to provide any additional documentation. Please remember the board members have all the material you have submitted to us. So anything that you'd like to clarify or speak on, but you have 3 minutes.
And just adding on to that, if she has counsel, the counsel also gets 3 minutes. So go ahead, Ms. Lemming.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Courtney Lemming, and I am a new resident of Texas. I recently relocated to Wichita Falls, Texas. My husband is in the United States Air Force, and we are stationed here at the Air Force Base. I have been in the mental health field for over 13 years, and I am thankful for every single day of that. I've been able to impact and assist my clients throughout that time and gain knowledge from them. I know that there was question about my ethics and my integrity from an incident that stemmed from 2022 to 2023. At this time, you guys have all of that documentation, and I would love to answer any questions that you may have.
Christina, will you confirm for me, did Health and Human Services did issue a licensed chemical and dependency license to her, and
That
that
is-
is active and in good standing?
That is correct.
Okay. Did they do a self-report query?
I do not know what the requirements are for that program. I don't know if they do fingerprints or an PDB. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Can I comment and say that I did do fingerprints? Yes, sir. And yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Lemming, you still have a few minutes. Do you want to continue your statement before we begin board discussion?
I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if anybody had any questions. I take 100% responsibility for the mistakes that I made. And I hope that those don't hinder my opportunity to continue working in this field and helping others. This is 100% my passion and my life's work. I'm just thankful for being here and having the opportunity to be heard by the board today. And like I said, I'm open to any questions. I do not have counsel. As I stated in the letter that I wrote to the board, there was no, I'm sorry, I'm a nervous wreck. There was no legal charges filed. Afterwards, the company that I'd worked for, they had sold to another company, and the owner of that, everything has been settled. There's nothing pending. We are 100% in the clear. So I don't have anything hanging over my head at this time. I just wish to be able to continue my counseling aspirations and be able to help others.
Was it clear? Ms. Lemming, what kind of restitution did you offer to your employer?
They took the final checks that I had that was owed to me. In addition, I paid almost $15,000. I paid $14,900 out of my pocket to them, and everything was finalized at that time.
Okay. Board members, specific questions for Ms. Lemming?
I believe there's always two sides to a story. So can I get your recount of what happened?
Absolutely. And I appreciate you asking me. Throughout this, there's been a lot of times where nobody's asked and they just assume. So I appreciate that once again. I was employed with that agency for 10 years. And what I had done was I was seeing patients after hours using their facility and not giving them their percentage of that. So the cash pay, when a patient paid me, I kept it because it was after hours. Once they figured out that that's what I was doing, they expected their portion of the payment back. So this is something that I had been doing for a few years before I was told that I could not be doing that anymore and that they expected their payment.
Was there a moonlighting clause in any employment agreement?
No, sir.
Good morning, Ms. Lemming. When this occurred, what licensure did you hold in Oklahoma?
I was a licensed alcohol drug counselor, associate or intern. I was under supervision for licensure.
Okay. Did you discuss any of this with your supervisor?
Yes, she knew that I'd been seeing some of these patients. There was never any concern. We staffed the patients through our weekly supervision meetings. However, tragically, she passed away due to cancer, and she was not able to speak on my behalf when it came time to meet with the board or to talk anymore with my employer. Sorry, that she was an amazing lady, so I appreciate that.
Hey, Christina, did she apply for a full license or an associate license? It says full here, the denials for full licensure.
Yes, sir. I started out after I was finished graduate school in the state of Oklahoma for LPC. That was before they made the change that we would have to complete the NCE before. So once they implemented the change that I had to have the NCE passed, I could not be under supervision for licensure because I hadn't passed the NCE at that time. Since then,
Thank
I
you,
have
Ms.
studied.
Thank you,
I'm
Ms. Emmons. I'm asking a technical
sorry.
question to our staff here. It's okay. We'll get
I'm
to you.
sorry.
It's okay.
She does have enough hours, like the experience hours that she did gain there. They would be able to count for her license here, and she does meet the
Okay. So
required number.
other than this issue, she does qualify. So
Correct.
that wasn't a paperwork error. Okay,
Correct.
gotcha.
When all this came to a head, you mentioned that there was an acquisition. So can you just talk a little bit about the acquisition? What you know about it?
Yes, sir. My knowledge is fairly limited. However, the owner of that company that I owned was a for-profit company, and he sold out and actually moved to Mexico, he and his wife. He was an elderly man who had been in the practice for over 25 years in the state of Oklahoma, and sold out, and it's since been rebranded and renamed. And it's my understanding that he does not have anything to do with the company at this time. I did reach out via email, which was the only way I know how to reach him, and asked if I could get something for this. And as of 9:30 this morning, I had not received anything from him. However, I can say that when we did part ways, we parted on good terms. And he said that he would always support me any way that he could. I know that's my word at this time, but I did try to get something from them concrete to give to the board, just to verify my statements.
As I recall from looking at what you had submitted, I had a lingering question, and that question is, you were in training, finished your degree in Oklahoma, and you started work on your license in Oklahoma?
Yes, ma'am.
And what happened? Can you give me information on how that process evolved?
Can I ask, are you asking about the LPC board licensure or the LADC board licensure?
The LPC board.
Yes, ma'am. So I was getting my supervision hours from the LPC board and a board approved supervisor. And then the board had made the change and adopted the clause that they needed us to pass the NCE to be able to be under supervision going forward. And at that time, I had not passed the NCE.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Patrick, what are your thoughts?
I think there's a question that is not completely clarified in the materials that were provided. And one of the thing is there's a written agreement that the applicant signed with the facility in Oklahoma that was filed with the Oklahoma board. And it's a repayment agreement, and it's for the full $30,000. In it, again, Daryl didn't hire me for my math, but if I did the math based on the way it was written out, it looks like it would be the repayment plan would be completed in September of 2026. And so I guess what's not clear in everything that was submitted is, has this full amount been satisfied that was to be repaid?
So what we did was they took the final checks and everything and gave me the full amount number. And I paid $14,900 towards that. At that time, the sale of the company was completed, and it was a gentleman's agreement that everything was final.
So it sounds like they forgave a portion of that.
Because they sold. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I mean, they would have wanted to get that resolved before a sale. So, I mean, it's going to be a really tough.
Yeah, I'm just looking.
Like no buyer's going to buy it with that debt on the books. So they're going to want it to be resolved. So they probably just said, hey, we're going to make more money over here, so we'll just forgive this. But we don't have that in writing.
Yeah, is there a letter that says you have fully satisfied the debt you owed us?
I do not have that. And I know I tried to reach out, like I mentioned, to the previous owner, but at this time I haven't received anything back from him.
This is Daryl Spinks. When did you try to reach out?
When I talked to Christina on September the 9th, I sent an email that day, and then I actually followed up again last week on the 13th, and I still haven't received anything. That is the only way I know how to reach the previous owner. I did reach out to the current owner to see if she knew how to get in touch with him, but she didn't have anything that she was comfortable passing to me because she didn't really know me.
Do you bill, are you, forgive me, I apologize for being late to the game, but are you billing any insurance or anything under your chemical dependency counselor Oklahoma license?
No, sir. Absolutely not.
Well, Daryl, she has a Texas one as well.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out if she's on a panel, if she's eligible to be on an insurance panel.
This license issue? A few months ago? Yeah, man.
Okay. No, they were okay with it.
Well.
I think that's a good question. What is your status on any insurance panel?
Since when I moved to Texas, with my husband, like I mentioned, for the Air Force, I actually work at a hospital here in Wichita Falls, and I don't know. Everything I have was submitted to them, and they bill that. I don't understand the billing. I'm very sorry. I don't do anything direct
She
billing.
wouldn't be credentialed on insurance panels if she's working for a hospital. The hospital would be billing on her behalf. Yeah. Okay, I'm kind of getting the sense that we want to approve this. We just have a concern. Is that sort of what I'm getting from everybody? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Public member looking at this, to me, there's a difference between embezzling from your clients. There's a difference of grabbing cash out of the cash drawer. She could have claimed that this was a big misunderstanding on what she was allowed to do, but she didn't. There's candor before us, and I appreciate that. I would like a document stating that the matter is considered resolved from the previous employer, but I don't know if that will be possible. So we would have to decide, or I would have to decide if I'm going to move forward on this, on what I would be willing to accept.
Patrick, could we get, could she do like a, what's the fancy thing you attorneys make people do?
Eligibility order?
No, to know that they're not lying. Do you do?
An attestation?
Yeah, an attestation or something.
Unsworn declaration.
Affidavit, sworn
Yeah.
affidavit.
Huh?
I'm sorry, I didn't get this job because I went to law school, so.
This never reached a criminal matter, right? This was
Correct.
settled civilly.
Yeah,
That's a big difference in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be comfortable with a sworn affidavit or something like that.
Ms. Lemming, do you have any chance of getting some sort of acknowledgement from the previous employer that this was basically resolved in full?
I do believe that there's a chance. Yes, sir. Like I said, I reached out to him via email 2 times this month. I just haven't received anything yet. However, I will say that he reached out to me in May of this year just to check on the family. Like I said, I worked for this man for over 10 years, and just to continue to offer his support to me. As I stated in my letter, I went through some counseling and things for myself personally. He just likes to check in. So I have had contact with him since this was finalized. So I'm in hope that he will answer me. And I feel like I could get that attestation to the board. I don't know how timely that would be. I haven't spoken to him since May.
Daryl, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, one option you have is you could, if you want to issue the license, you can issue it contingent upon staff confirming with this other owner that in fact no monies are owed. And if we can't get a hold of them, you decide how that operates on the contingency, whether we can still move forward.
Yeah.
But it takes the whole middleman telephone game out of the equation.
The lawyer in me was looking at this as kind of like it was a resolution of a civil matter. What we settled, the amount was maybe not the original amount asked for, but there was a settlement amount. This is why you do get stuff in writing, but I find Daryl's suggestion, I find that acceptable. We need, if staff could verify that it was in fact resolved, because we don't have the other side of the story, and that may be, no, I want every single dollar. So, board,
we would just,
Vanessa and Brenda, also, if you guys have anything that you wanted to add on this, please do. Nothing? Okay. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Bradley.
All right. If I recall the materials I read, this occurred in about 2022. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. What's happened since that time that I can feel that, okay, she made a mistake, but things have been okay the last 2 years, for example?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. So I know that the lapse in judgment that I had, it's embarrassing. It doesn't reflect on my character. So I did go to counseling. I was seen by an LPC, and I actually met with my doctor to help manage some of my anxiety through medication. So currently, I see my doctor bi-monthly for check-ins in person, and he and I make sure that my medication management is under control. And I have spoken with my professional peers who have encouraged me throughout this whole process. I am completely open with the current CEO of the hospital I work for, as well as my group CEO. I believe there's letters of support from them. And they are aware of my past and the choices I made, and the consequences that I've had for that. I do a lot of journaling, which is something I didn't do in the past. I'm really focused on my own self-care, just making sure that I'm not overwhelmed and not taking care of myself. So I've really made some changes personally as well. I don't, you guys can't see me, but I started a workout regimen, and I was severely overweight before, and I'm happy to sit here today and say that I've taken care of myself to the point where I'm not considered overweight anymore. That's aside from the point, but self-care has been very important to me. Sorry.
That's good to hear, Ms. Lemming. Thank you. Sean, first of all, good questions to start us off. You're already proving your worth, so appreciate that. This is a great example of what I kind of told you about how the public members come in. We have to look at this and say, one way or the other, you go home and are you married? Yeah, you're married. And your wife asks you, tell me about the meeting. Are you going to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that they voted to let this person move forth with their licensure because she had embezzled in the past? Or would you say, hey, a thoughtful analysis was done, and we really approached it from different angles, and this is the resolution that we came up with, and it's something that I can go to sleep tonight comfortable with. That's where the public members provide their value. So great job. Board, are we kind of settling on something? Can we approve this if we have some assurances that this, I'm going to call it settled because that's how I think, but is that if we have some assurances that the amount in question was settled and the previous employer considers it resolved, and aside from this happening, we have no other concerns about Ms. Lemming? Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. I have concerns about it. I think that the charge that we have here, that I want to see something that assures me that this has been settled, and I'm not going to vote for it just verbally.
So I would actually co-sign on what Dr. Bradley has said. I am concerned that part of the most vulnerable part of your training, when you're under supervision, when you're supposed to have the most guidance and assistance, that you were failed. I also appreciate the candor, but if this happened during an intern license or when you were under supervision, then my concern is, did you really get the things you needed to get under supervision before you can move forward? And so that is my concern, of not so much whether it was settled or not. I agree, you know, it may have been a gentleman's agreement, but now it's did you get the ethics? Did you get everything that you were supposed to get while under supervision? And I feel like that you were failed.
Okay.
Patrick, clarify for me, this was a civil issue, not a criminal issue, yes?
Yeah, we don't have any criminal basis. We
Right.
we have
Yeah.
the denial letters from the Oklahoma board that
Yeah.
denied it, and then they have a copy of the written agreement to repay the money. But there's only the denial from Oklahoma that denied her application. when
Right,
she
but the
applied.
rest of the background checks, the self.
There's not a criminal conviction
No,
that we
okay.
would be using against her. No.
So it's a civil disagreement between the employer, arguably not even unethical. Could have just been a miscommunication on the employment agreement. And
It wasn't a miscommunication. She acknowledged, but
Yeah.
she, and frankly, I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate the candor. We need more of that. And she acknowledged that this was a mistake. She made efforts to provide restitution, and at least according to her, they did reach an amount that was acceptable to where that was considered that the restitution was sufficient and that the matter was closed on their end. That's where I see it.
I'm a little bit confused, and she may need to restate it. My understanding was she was seeing clients after hours. And Ms. Fleming, I'd like to understand, was that your choice? Were you told to do that by your work? But she also said that there's no moonlighting clause. But I've been in mergers and acquisitions in healthcare for over 10 years, and something just isn't sitting right from the other side, because if someone was stealing and you're trying to sell your business, to settle civilly like this, it typically doesn't go down like that. I've sat and testified as a forensic accountant for and against providers in similar situations. And so something tells me Miss Lemming probably had an idea that she was diving in a gray area. And then the owner, when selling the business, found out, wanted money back, and it led to where we are today. But, Miss Lemming, why don't you let me know if that's a clear understanding?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely open to discuss any of these questions you have. So I basically had somebody call to see if they could do sessions after hours. The company closed at 5. People couldn't be seen till 6. I stayed after hours and started seeing patients. The problem that I understand that brought this up is that I was using their facility. I didn't use any personal paperwork. I still used their paperwork, but these were considered private pay patients, cash only, and they weren't logged in the system or anything. I was the only one that was seeing them. Like I said, my supervisor, who was not employed by the company, so my licensure supervisor knew it. We staffed these patients because they were patients that I was seeing. Does that help? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be confusing.
And so I'll share, like, that's my concern. So when someone is under supervision, as a supervisor, it is your role. You don't tell people what to do, but you provide ethical guidance. You provide guidance on orientation to the field. And I don't know if it was said, but if your clinical supervisor, your licensed supervisor knew, hey, I'm seeing these clients after my office is closed and they're giving me the money and I'm just putting it in my pocket. I'm not paying for the use of the couch or the electricity or the water or any of the actual utilities, but I'm pocketing the money and your supervisor knew about that. That would be a concern of ethics for me, for your supervisor to say somewhere, hey, understand that you're trying to see them, but that's not the path you want to go as a budding clinician.
Patrick.
If I can just throw a suggestion out there, because it sounds like there's not really a desire to fully license her, but also deny her. And so the middle ground might be an eligibility order that says she gets an associate license. She has to be under supervision for a certain period of time, 6 months, a year, whatever period of time the board decides. And during that, and before we will fully approve her application, she needs to submit that proof of completion of the debt, the payment from that person. So then she still gets that supervision. It sounds like Dr. Moon is talking about, but she doesn't get automatically denied today.
Okay. Board, does anyone believe that there was client or patient harm here? Did what she was doing, did it harm patients?
No.
No.
Not even a complaint was filed. I don't think.
Okay.
Was a complaint ever filed? I mean, I don't know that she actually did anything unethical.
My understanding, and I don't know Oklahoma regulatory structure. It sounds
Well,
like
it's Oklahoma, so I mean,
it sounds like she didn't have a license to discipline or take away, so she was practicing under supervision, and then
well, she would have been. Well, yeah, that's.
I
They don't
think
have-
there's
Oklahoma doesn't do the associate, right?
the
Yeah,
time
that's right.
that
Yeah, yeah.
she was getting
so
licensed.
that's why.
Hey, I didn't say it. Okay.
But what's big with me is that always looking out for a patient was harmed, and that's not the case here. So I am more inclined to, with certain conditions, move forward. The person that was harmed was the previous employer, who has, as far as we can tell, has agreed to resolve the matter at that, essentially what it was, a settlement amount. So the person that was harmed has agreed that the restitution has been reached. And again, without patient harm, then I am more inclined to allow her to move forward.
As am I.
No, I like the eligibility order. Dr. Bradley, go ahead.
One question. Did your supervisor know that you were seeing clients after hours and keeping that money?
Yes, ma'am.
Your supervisor knew that?
Yeah.
My licensure supervisor did. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I mean, maybe let me just ask you more directly so to clear everything up here. Ms. Lemming, did you do this intentionally, despite your employer telling you not to do it? Did you think it was wrong to do it when you did it?
Absolutely not, sir. I did not do this intentionally. And I didn't actually think there was any wrongdoing. Later, in retrospect, I see where like it was mentioned a while ago, that I was using their couch. I was using their electricity. I was using their place to see patients. So I know that it was wrong now, but in the moment, I did not realize I was doing anything wrong.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I think that's why I don't agree that the supervisor failed her, that the supervisor did anything wrong, because I don't think the supervisor knew 100% about her employment agreement. I mean, she was moonlighting, but I don't think, like, that's not an issue for us to deal with. That's an issue for her companies to deal with, and those companies dealt with it.
Ms. Lemming, did you do any continuing education after the fact related to ethics? Have you hit on that at all personally, or did the other board
Yes.
require you?
The other board has not required me to. However, yes, I actually just completed last week an ethics course for 3 hours of continuing education. And I actually was pretty eye-opening. I've not done those in Texas. So it was very informational, and I intend to continue to do more, to learn more.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Dr. Bradley.
I think Brenda is ahead of me.
I apologize. Go ahead, Brenda.
That's all right. So I may not understand all the legalities of it, but I believe you said earlier that she settled out civilly. Is that right?
Essentially, that's what it is. It's a civil settlement.
Okay, so there should be some paperwork there with some dollar amounts.
If attorneys were not brought in, it's frankly, it's unlikely. It sounds like we had a employer who was anxious to sell, retire, and move to Mexico, and probably just wanted it done.
So I know that things happen. I'm all for taking ethics courses, getting better, improving, learning from the experience. I'm ready to move forward with this. I feel like if we grant her this with stipulations or contingent on bringing documents or whatever it is, I think we need to move forward.
Okay, Dr. Bradley, you had a question?
If I recall, either what you said or in the materials that I read, you first tried to contact this employer on September the 9th.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that about right?
Yes, ma'am. That would be the day that I spoke with Christina, and she asked if I had anything else and advised that it would be a good idea for me to gather any of that documentation to present to the board for today.
So it's not been a month since you tried to contact that person who's in another country, right?
Yes, ma'am.
If you were guessing, you worked for this person for 10 years, so you must have some idea of what he's like. How long do you think it would be before you would hear from him?
I would say probably just a month or so. He's really enjoying his life on the beach. So I would anticipate within a month or two that I would have something from him that would be a legal document that I could present to the board.
What I'm getting at here, since you've worked for him and you're likely to hear from him, then I'm more likely to support this if I have valid information from him rather than you're telling me what happened. Not that I don't believe you, but I just want something valid, and I'm willing to wait to get that.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Feel free.
I'd like to move that we approve the application with the stipulation that we have a letter from the employer stating that all is well.
Second.
Okay, we now have a motion and a second. Is there some discussion regarding this specific motion? Patrick, do you have the details on the eligibility order?
Well, would this be an eligibility order or just an approval and a request that she submit it? The question I would have is there a deadline, like 3 months, 1 month to submit it? That would, and is this an eligibility order or just an approval? And we're expecting it with a letter that says we expect to get it within a month or 3 months or whatever.
Yeah, I would say it's an approval with the expectation that we're going to get this within 60 days. Is that good for you guys?
Board's discretion.
Dr. Bradley, go ahead.
We're in the discussion of the motion, right? Okay. My question here is, what if we don't get that information? What's the outcome?
Then it would not be approved.
Then it would not be approved. So we're agreeing that that's part of the motion.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if we approve it, she's been given the license. So then we would have to institute action to say, hey, you haven't given this. Can we actually yank it back? I don't know that.
Well, we don't want to issue it. So it's not going to get issued until we get the letter.
The motion is approval contingent upon receipt of the letter within 60 days.
That's why we have attorneys.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion regarding this motion?
I want to be sure what I'm voting on here. I think I know. If we do not get the letter, then we will revoke the
we just won't issue it.
We will deny the application.
Okay.
And what kind of letter are we looking for? An email? Does she need to go get an attorney and get a notarized document? Like,
I'm going to leave that up to Patrick and Daryl because they went to law school.
I would like some sort of it does not have to be. We don't need to be generating billable hours for anybody here. I just need some I need some confirmation that the other side considers the matter settled.
Can we at least look at check copies and stuff like that? Because who knows how much those paychecks were worth? And she said she paid 14 grand. If those paychecks were 5K a piece or 7K and 7K, she could have already met the 30 grand.
Just as a reminder to our wonderful board members here, we are not investigators.
I would say at least put check copies or something as a secondary, because we're talking about some guy who's 80 years old in Mexico.
We have added a forensic accountant to the board.
Who said yay?
Mr. Chair,
That was you.
can I make the suggestion, just, I think that would help, is the motion be approval contingent on getting this staff getting this confirmation. If we don't get this confirmation, we will bring this back to you at the next meeting. We won't simply deny it. We can have this conversation again, fully expecting we will have this resolved for you.
That sounds great.
That's
Robert,
acceptable to me.
Can you rephrase my motion now, please?
I don't think it needs phrasing. It's just approval contingent on getting this confirmation from the employer that all is
Approval
settled.
contingent on a letter that is legally acceptable to staff.
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion regarding this motion? Okay, at this time, I will ask for a vote on whether we approve with contingent upon obtaining confirmation regarding the status of the matter through an eligibility order. So all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lemming.
Can you clarify
I-
who seconded that motion?
Janie.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you
Lemming.
all.
Yeah,
Thank
I'll
you
be
all.
reaching out to you.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Mr. Lewis,
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Lewis, I apologize,
Sorry, no,
Christina.
you're-
I'm just trampling all over. I'm sorry about that. Mr. Lewis is next.
Item. All right. So Dr. John Lewis is on the call today. This material was a part of your board packet material. Mr. Lewis has a foreign degree. The master's is in counseling, but there are not enough graduate hours to meet requirements, and that is per statute as well. And he is here. Dr. Lewis, you'll have 3 minutes to provide any information or clarifying information. And just remember that the board members do have all of the material that you had submitted to our office.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Can you all right. Can you hear me? I assume you can. Thank you very much for your time. I'm actually now zooming you from Singapore. It's almost coming up to midnight, but thank you so much for the time. I did do my master's in 2005 in one of the top ranking universities in the world, Monash University, Melbourne, Australia. And then after that, I became a registered counselor for the Singapore Association for Counseling. And I have since then become a clinical member and supervisor. And I'm also an advanced schema therapist, where I specialize in treating people with personality disorders, borderline personality disorder, narcissism, and everything else. Now, I've been here for over 3 decades, and then my wife, who's a Texan, she felt the need to go back to Texas, look after her parents. And because she has followed me all these years, I felt it was only fair that I reciprocate. So I went back 4 years ago, and then I got my green card. But I just want to practice as a counselor, which I've been doing over 3 decades. And so I approached the board. The staff said, I need to sit for the exam, the National Counseling exam. And so I took that last year and I passed my first attempt. Now, I understand that the curriculum are all laid out there, all the things, and that's why I studied and brought myself up to speed with whatever I missed, since 2005. And I also was able to, study all this during my PhD. So I passed the exam, and then the board told me that that you need to have covered all the subjects. And so one of the recommendation was for me to give my PhD and my master's to be evaluated by an evaluation institution, ACEI, and they evaluated, and they gave me 90 units for my PhD and my master's, which was way above the 48 minimum required by the Texas law. So I thought everything was in order and applied, but they said, sorry, my application has been denied. So I just want to make the appeal because all the subject you've listed, I have studied it. That's why I passed the exam. And I also went in greater depth because I got my PhD from the UK, and it was about clinical effectiveness. I invented now 4 scales that are used by clinicians worldwide to improve clinical effectiveness. And this is about helping people with what we call schemas, their lifelong thinking and emotion and acting habits. And so I was able to use that to help people with personality disorder. In fact, right now I'm in Singapore helping clinicians here to treat those who are incarcerated. These are difficult to treat clients. And so I'm using my experience to be able to do that. So I'm just appealing that I be given an LPC so I can practice in Texas, having passed the exam and knowing that I've actually finished all the subjects. It's just that they were not listed in the transcript. And that's because in Britain and other parts, they don't write everything that you do. In Britain, when you do your PhD, they don't give you a transcript saying, okay, you studied this class, this class. Their main test is whether or not you have published papers. And so the papers speaks volumes of your knowledge, your depth, and your understanding. So I've published well over 15, and these are not unrelated areas. These are about clinical effectiveness. So my scale is now being used by people all over the world, including LPCs from the United States. They write to me asking me to help them, how to improve clinical effectiveness by the use of my scale. So I didn't study in Texas. That's because I grew up in Malaysia, Singapore, and I went to the UK. But I married a Texan, and I'm here because of her parents. But I just, and I passed my exam last year. So I'm just appealing that after my PhD and master's was already evaluated to be equivalent to 90 units, and my PhD was assigned to be equivalent to clinical psychology in the United States. So I don't see any reason why I can't just practice, given the depth of my knowledge that's been demonstrated by my years of experience, and also, by my publication and the invention of psychometrically validated scales, let alone my master's and so many other continuing education courses I've done for over 20 years. So I have a green card right now. And that's where I am. So I just hope you can help me with this. Feel free to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. If you will just remain on the Zoom, we'll see if board members have specific questions for you.
Sure.
Anyone want to start?
I mean, my understanding is that we just don't have a mechanism to approve this. I mean, if he's just deficient in the hours, there's just no mechanism here. Yeah.
Christina, do we have that matrix that the staff does in terms of what's in place and what's missing? Like, I've thumbed through these and I'm not seeing which coursework we're telling him to do.
So because he has a master's of counseling degree, we don't evaluate. Because it's a counseling degree, we don't evaluate the courses. So that's not the issue in this part. It's the graduate number hours. If we go into using the doctorate where the evaluating company did give him, I think it was like 90 credits or whatnot, or 60 credits, sorry. It's only listing research and dissertation. So if we go over to the counseling related degree, then do we need to look at the individual courses at that point? And then also, can we use any of these graduate hours from the master's degree? If you look at the paperwork, it's the dissertation thesis. We don't know what to count or not, and the research is in there too, but that's kind of where it comes back to you all. But the counseling degree itself, we don't look at the courses.
Well, yeah, but and we wouldn't count out of a PhD course anyways, because I mean, our statute requires a master's degree, not a PhD. And there is no system in the United States to skip the master's and go direct to PhD in the counseling profession, unlike psychology, currently anyways, at least that I'm aware of.
Just to clarify, the statute does allow for a doctoral degree.
Well, it does allow for one, but
Master's or doctoral.
but there is, as far as I'm aware, there is no school in the United States where you can just go and get a PhD in counseling and skip the master's.
But I think
May I say something?
Sorry, I think he has the master's from Monash.
One second, Mr. Lewis.
Yes,
please.
I do have a master's in counseling degree from a highly reputable university in Australia. It is master
Right, no,
in counseling.
I understand that. And Dr. Lewis, I understand that. My question is well, one, that's not in the United States, so it's like a different issue for us. What were you going to say, Sean?
I was just saying he does have a master's of counseling from Monash University. I don't know much about the university, but
No, but our statute requires, and the directive to staff was only if it is from a jurisdiction in the United States. So it's only if it's KCREP, SACCOC, a system that has been approved by the Department of Education is, I believe, what we put in the directive. That was the exact language. So we would, in this case, dig into the master's degree and have to go and count those courses.
If I can
The
add really quick, my understanding is it's a matter of just hours. It's not about whether there were good classes or bad classes or whether they're reputable. It's just that if we require 48 and you only have 30, like if we go by statute, that's where it is. As far as what's been translated to us.
Yeah.
Is that correct, Christina?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of a circular problem because there are multiple paths. And so, yes, if it is under the counseling degree schema, then as long as the hours are met, we don't look at the underlying coursework. In this case, the underlying hours are not met by purely a master's in counseling. However, you could look at the totality of the degrees as being under the counseling related schema, in which case you do have to look at all of the coursework to see if they've met all the coursework. In this instance, the transcripts, because they're foreign degrees, simply don't have any of those courses listed. So that's why we as staff could not authorize, because we could not verify enough to say this is this PhD is counseling related or not. We couldn't do that, and we couldn't.
May I say something, please? The ACI, the evaluation institution, did look at my PhD, did look at my dissertation, did look at my publication, and said it was definitely equivalent to clinical psychology. And it says that my thesis is clinical psychology. So they actually wrote that in their evaluation.
Well, Dr. Lewis, why not apply to the psychology board then?
Because I've always been a counselor. And,
but I mean, if you have a degree in clinical psychology, why not go apply there?
Well, I could, but the thing is, you see, I have more degrees related to counseling than I do in psychology, because first of all, I was with the Singapore Association for Counseling, and then my master's was also in counseling, and all other courses I took was related to counseling. It's just that my PhD was in clinical psychology. I took a leap and, had an interest in that. And so I'm much more with the counseling realm than I am with the psychology. And so that's why I got my PhD evaluated by ACEI, and they said it's equivalent to clinical psychology in the United States, and they offered 60 units.
So what the issue though is not so much that, Dr. Lewis. The issue is that we don't accept clinical psychology degrees to become master's level therapists here. It would not translate in directly for us. We lack, I think the frustration this board has is that we lack a mechanism for this, is that we go through this once a year, every other year, it seems, and we spend 30, 45 minutes talking about this issue, and we walk away with no solution because we do not have a mechanism for accepting degrees that are outside of the United States. And every country handles mental health differently. I mean, we can't even get our states to agree on it. So,
Right.
So
I understand.
the degrees from Australia and London and everywhere else, and they're amazing. And I applaud you for your work, which is clearly wonderful work. But we don't have a mechanism to count it here, and that's the issue.
Go
No,
ahead, Dr. Bradley.
Yeah.
Hang on just a second, Mr. Lewis.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dr. Bradley.
Christina, this is probably a question for you. He needs, okay, he falls under the 48-hour rule. Is that because his degree was awarded prior to what, 2017?
September 1, 2017. So since he started prior to that, it's 48.
I'm just surprised that there is not, and I'm not saying that you're incorrect, but I evaluate international transcripts fairly frequently because we have those students coming into our program and it lists their courses. So I'm a little confused on why we don't have an actual transcript.
I would like to second that because I have the University of Sterling website up. It says that you can request an official academic transcript, and that it would have each module with individual marks listed on that transcript. So I would just like to see the transcript, and maybe we can.
Okay, may I just interject something? I had my dean, the dean of Sterling University, write to the board, and he explained clearly that my PhD was a research degree to develop skills for clinical effectiveness, and it does not have a transcript. It's a research degree. Now, he's written a whole page on it. I've already sent that. And, you know, some PhDs have transcripts, they have classes, some are research-based, and mine was research-based simply to improve clinical effectiveness using the schema approach. That's why I ended up developing 3 psychometrically related scales. So these fall under counseling-related subjects to me in your act, you see, because they are about clinical effectiveness. And so this, and I have that letter from the dean, and some degrees, some PhDs just don't have transcripts. And that's why ACEI looked at my dissertation and publication, and they said it's equivalent to 60 units of a clinical psychology degree in the United States.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Christina, who's the company that we use that does this evaluation for us?
We no longer reach out to someone else to do it. They have to submit it.
Oh, they submit. We used to use the University of Texas, right?
Correct.
Did we just get too many Aggies on the board? And
I guess so.
is that what happened? But we don't. Is there a reason why we don't use them anymore?
I'm not sure. But
What do you
there's
got?
an outline of who.
The council changed the rule so that we could go from, we weren't tied to just one particular evaluator, and we shifted the burden onto the applicants to have it done before they come to us.
Okay, gotcha.
Can I offer to the board, it has come up, I think y'all want to know what your options are and what you actually have room to do. The transcripts we have do not have the courses listed. And so respectfully, it would be inappropriate of the board to say the transcripts meet all the course requirements because we simply don't have that level of detail. However, statute does not specifically require meeting specific courses. That is in rule. And the council will be taking up what we believe will be adopted as a global rule for all the boards to give you the authority to license someone who meets the spirit of all the requirements, but maybe not the letter of the rule language, as long as they meet all the statutory requirements. And so if the board had a desire to approve this applicant, what you would have to be deciding is that substantively the degrees and experience this person has had meets the statutory requirements, which is just the doctoral degree in counseling or related field, and the
Can you mute
practicum.
him? Sorry. My apologies, Robert.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Practicum and supervised experience, sort of, that's the bare minimums. And that
Have we ever done that?
you've never had this rule before.
All right.
So you've never had the opportunity, but you don't have it yet. You'd have to be instructing us to do it come October if the rule passes.
Okay.
No, this is October.
Next month.
Yeah,
Next
but
month.
by the time it gets proposed and then resolved.
No, it's being adopted in October. Yeah.
But today, we're sitting with the path that we have been taken, and I'm thinking about even our last board meeting and some applications that we evaluated.
Right.
And so I would say today, we don't have that. And thinking in terms of how we've evaluated other applicants, I would want to see the coursework, and I don't see it.
Have we referred, has the applications committee reviewed this?
This one went straight to the board.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to propose that we send it over to the applications committee so that they can do a bit of a more thorough dive into what is missing or what we would need to see, or if come October, this rule passes, if that's something that could happen there. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah.
The kind of building on what Robert said, to give y'all an example of how it would work. If the rule is adopted by BHEC, this is what we call a remediation and waiver rule, the global remediation and waiver rule. If it is adopted by BHEC, like for example, Psychology Board has already cleared staff to approve or grant somebody a license if that rule is passed by the council. If it is not, then they get denied. So you can clear somebody contingent upon the council adopting that rule. One issue to consider, Dr. Taylor, with what you had just suggested is how do you, what do you do if you kick something back to the applications committee now and the board is split as you sit here right now on what to do? How do I know that whatever the apps committee decides is what this full board would decide? So I don't know that gets us anywhere kicking it back to apps.
Well, I don't think it'd be kicking it back. It sounds like we'd be sending it to them for the first time. I don't think they reviewed it.
Well,
Christina said it just came direct to staff, right?
I would also say that there is no more information to be had. You have everything in his explanation. That is all the information there is. We have worked on this for several months trying to get more, and this is it.
As a member of the apps committee, I don't see the point in sending it back because number one, we have the information here from which to act. And I think that, that the board is saying here, we don't have evidence that the courses are there and are equivalent.
Right.
And we can't change that on the apps committee. If it doesn't exist now, it doesn't exist then.
No, I was just hopeful that maybe after you looked at it, Dr. Bradley, you would be able to say specifically what was missing and what he needed to do to obtain the license. Because I think we're still a little clear on that. Are we unclear on that?
I'm very unclear because I'm not ready to say that he should be provisioned a license, but I do think the board owes him exactly what he needs to do to be eligible for a license. And if we can't do that, I would say we need to provision it to him. And I would like to ask a question. I'm looking at a transcript. There's been multiple times people said there's no transcript. There is a transcript from Monash University. It's the 35th ranked university in the world. Now that's US News and Report. Take it for what it's worth, but that's the same company that does the Aggies and UT as well. And I see coursework here. I don't understand where we're getting the 30 to 48 hours. This says 12, 12, 12, and 12. That's 48. Can someone kind of explain where the hour discrepancy is coming from?
So I think the calculation on the 12, 12, those are because it was a university in Australia. Those aren't, those have to be evaluated by a US, there's the 2 US evaluations that were done, and then there's a math conversion to US credit hours. And I believe that it wasn't a 1-to-1 translation for what they gave those credit hours for.
So he needs 18 hours more coursework. Okay.
Yes, but I want to make sure though that if we deny this, we say it's 18 hours. I want it to be very, very specific so he knows
I agree.
exactly what to do. So when he comes back, there's no more question.
Because it's a counseling degree, we don't need specific courses. He just needs 18 credit or 18 graduate hours in anything counseling or related. It doesn't have to be specific courses.
And so it's our position as a board that his PhD is not counseling specific. Has nothing to do with counseling, right?
So,
Okay.
Well,
yeah, this is where it gets a little murky.
Yeah.
Because statute requires a master's or doctoral degree in counseling or a related field of 48 hours minimum. You would have to be saying, and I believe this is Dr. Lewis's request, essentially, is to say, okay, I have 30 hours in a master's in counseling. I just need 18 hours more in a counseling or related field. My PhD should satisfy those 18 hours. That is what he is asking to happen. By doing that, you would then have to be comfortable that he neither has a 48-hour master's in counseling, nor would he meet the traditional definition of a counseling related degree where you look at all of the coursework components. It would be bending the rules in a way that I believe the board could do, but we as staff were not comfortable doing because it kind of has a foot in both sides of those houses.
Well, and we start to set precedents too, Robert, because we had that one applicant a couple of years ago from Argentina that had a PhD in psychology that tried to apply, and we did the math on it, and she didn't even have, like, when it translated to the US, it wasn't even 48 hours of a master's degree.
And so you would be setting the precedent that anyone with the name counseling and a master's degree of whatever hours, 12, 20, whatever, could get another degree that's in the behavioral health field whatsoever and put it on top of it and count.
I'm very uncomfortable with that. I am very pro Dr. Lewis. I think from what I've read about him, he seems amazing. I would love to have him in the state of Texas offering high level, high quality care to our public. But I also do not want to bend the rules in this way. And I absolutely do not want to set a precedence that anyone from any degree system in the world can just wander over here if it says counseling on it. I'm very uncomfortable with that.
I agree. I just, at least we can tell him exactly what he needs to do.
Exactly.
That's because my dad was an immigrant. He went through this too. So,
yeah. So is it 18 hours in counseling? That's all he needs. He needs to go to an online school or Texas A&M Commerce here and just get 18. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be insulting.
No. So based on what y'all just said, you are not interpreting the rule to say any level of any counseling degree, you just then have to get a few more hours of counseling on top of it. So instead, what you'd be saying is that he needs to fulfill the counseling related, either go back and get a 60 hours master's in counseling and you don't have to look at the degree at all, or he needs to fulfill coursework in all of the required areas that he is missing. And we can count a few of the things from the named transcript and we can tell him specifically as staff which ones he's missing.
How quickly can 18 hours be done?
I was going to say it would be more beneficial, and Dr. Bradley, I'm leaning to your understanding. It would be more beneficial and maybe efficient for the applicant to apply to a graduate school, accredited graduate school, take 18 hours in a counseling program. You can be a non-degree seeking student, get 18 graduate hours, and then come back, as opposed to any other route.
Or work with Melbourne or Australia and Sterling and see if they can, find these transcripts.
I'm not confident that it's an 18 hours problem based on what the board has said.
What do you think it is?
It is, if you essentially, what we understand has established, and maybe this is a conversation for the rules committee to try to clear this up, but is that someone who has a counseling degree that meets the hours requirement, that is prima facie enough. We do not have to look at what coursework that entailed. That is just we presume that by getting a large enough, full enough fledged master's in counseling, we presume you've gotten all the training you needed. If you don't meet that, you need to show us you've got all this training.
Right.
Ish. Can I say ish? So if you have a master's degree in counseling and that master's degree meets the credit hours that we require from a master's degree person in Texas.
Correct.
So it's not just master's in counseling, but does that master's in counseling meet the credit hours? And it's my understanding that yes, the master's degree is in counseling, but that master's degree does not meet the credit hour requirement.
Correct.
And it's not from a university that's approved by the Department of Education in the United States.
And you cannot use the new BHEC rule to cure the 18-hour deficiency, I don't believe, for the master's degree, because that's a statutory component and you can't remediate that.
And
So you're going to have to, sorry, Robert, I was going to say, you're going to have to, if you want to figure out a way to remediate or waive something, you're going to have to rely on the doctoral degree, and you're going to have to start waiving the coursework requirement or setting up some type of remediation scheme where you say you got to go do this or that so that we can ensure that your training and education is going to ensure public safety. I think that's where you're going to have to do your remediation, is in that doctoral degree, and it's counseling related.
Go ahead, Dr. Bradley.
If I were to contact the university where you obtained your PhD, would they tell me it's a degree in clinical psych or in counseling?
Oh, let me, I have it muted. Hold on just a sec. Dr. Lewis? There you
All
go.
right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for asking that question. If you got in touch with Sterling, they would say that this was a degree, a PhD, a research PhD in clinical psychology, because that was the title of my thesis. But this is a subject of overlap, because what I invented was scales that are used by counselors all over the world, myself included. And it's also used by psychologists. This is where there's an overlap, as you all know, between psychology and counseling. What I did was invented scales that would shorten a lengthy, say, a 20 session into maybe 5, because the scales will pick up on the relevant constructs. And so it's used for both. And that's why I picked that topic, because I wanted to develop a scale that will improve treatment effectiveness. So that's what Sterling would say. And that's why when I went to ACEI, the Evaluation Institute in the USA, they said they need to read my dissertation. They read it, and they had a list of my publication, and they said it was completely related to and equivalent to PhD in psychology from the United States. So this is why I would like to argue that your act said it should be counseling or counseling related. And my PhD is definitely counseling related. It's not something bizarre like, the habits of crab on the beach at 12 noon, okay? Something that's just not at all related. This is counseling. And I get professional counselors from the United States also send me emails. I get an email almost every day from someone in the world, a clinician, asking me to give them training in the scales that I've developed to help them either as counselors or psychologists.
Thank you,
So,
Mr. Lewis. Thank
yeah.
you. Yeah. Is there anything else? Okay, then I do need a motion. If someone is prepared to make one.
I make the motion that we deny this request because we need to not only, I think, deny it, but we also need to say that we cannot find the needed 18 hours. Now, I'll make a second motion on how to give him specific things to move forward.
We as
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Robert.
If you vote to deny, we as staff will work with him and go through the course requirements as well. If you deny, we will as staff work with him on next steps. So you are welcome to instruct on next steps, but we will take care of it. You don't have to.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding Dr. Bradley's motion?
What is schema therapy? Just so I know. I'm curious.
Schema therapy?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'd like to, I want to understand if there's overlap.
It's been a while since I've been in grad school.
Hello? Hi. Yeah, may I please answer
No,
that question?
Mr. Lewis, Dr. Lewis, a point of order. We have an open vote here. We need to stay on track on that.
okay.
I'd like to know if there's overlap. Like what, can someone please give me a quick definition of schema therapy? I'll
Dr. Bradley,
use the internet.
do you want this one?
No, I do not. And the reason I don't, I think I know the answer, but I don't feel that I have an authority, that I'm an authority in this. What I was saying, no, I don't want to give the definition. I think I know the answer or probably know it. However, I don't feel that I've taught this specific area enough to feel competent in my definition.
So this is what Psychology Today defines it as. Schema therapy is a type of therapy that targets schemas, a term used to clinically describe maladaptive behaviors of thinking that could cause someone to engage in unhealthy behavior, to struggle to maintain adult relationships. Some thought during childhood and maintain proper boundaries, such as avoidance, excessive self-sacrifice, and it's listed in here with relational, CBT, and somatic therapies. I know enough about this field that I would call that an overlap. So his PhD does overlap counseling, in my opinion.
We're definitely, nobody's disagreeing with that. We are calling it counseling related.
Okay.
We absolutely, we're all in agreement with
Okay.
that his PhD is counseling related. Nobody's saying that it's not. The issue and what's up for vote right now is that we as a legislative body or as a regulatory body do not have the authority to approve his application as it stands, because it is outside of what the House and Senate has set in statute for us to do.
And that's all I'm trying to understand, because I'm reading it and it says a counseling degree or counseling related degree.
Issued by the department, issued by a university, approved by the Department of Education.
Correct. So
my motion, well, I may be out of turn. My motion was not intending to say that it's not a related degree. There is overlap. This particular theory picks up from behaviorism. It picks up a little from Gestalt. So it's picking up, it is counseling related, I believe. However, I think the issue that I made my motion on, it's deficit 18 hours. We don't have proof of the number of hours.
Yeah, we want him to verify
Yes.
that. I mean, if we can,
I guess like I'm really confused here, because if we're all in agreement that the PhD has overlap, does he not meet the hours or not?
So there's two different ways it comes in statute, because there's two different requirements in statute. The first one is have a graduate degree, a master's or doctoral in counseling or related field.
And that's 30 hours according to the way that our board has set up.
Well,
40.
No, he's getting credit
Yes.
for 30 hours. So he's 30 hours right there.
So there's two different ways that could go. You could be relying only on his master's, in which case 30 hours is not sufficient under the statute.
Correct.
Or relying on the combination of master's and PhD as a counseling related field. That would meet the hours requirement of 48 in the statute, but the statute goes further to say that it must include 300 hours of practicum and meet the specific academic course content and training standards established by the council. And so statute
So that's
directs
what,
you
so,
to say-
That's the roadblock.
so that's what he's missing is the practicum.
No,
The-
no.
the course
We can't
workforce.
go down, we can't go down the first road.
I
It
see.
doesn't meet the requirements. So we got to go down the related road.
I
And
see.
that requires staff to look at every course that is taken. So he's deficient. Staff will be directed to lay that out as crystal clear as possible. And we have our motion on the floor.
Okay. I agree with that.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Bradley, will you state your motion one more time, please, before we vote?
Let me see if I can rephrase it maybe better this time. That is, my motion is to deny this request, and I'll just do it more generally because it does not meet our minimum requirements.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay. At this time, we will go ahead and vote. All in favor that we do deny this applicant, please raise your hand. Okay. And are there any no votes? Okay.
I just want to say on the first motion, you said that we would make sure that we get with this gentleman and tell him exactly what he needs to do.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do it.
Okay. Yes, she did. Okay, that was unanimous. We are overdue for a break, so we are now going to go. Let's try to keep it about 5 minutes. So we will adjourn. Yes,
Sure.
Dr. Taylor.
Dr. Lewis, I just want to continue to encourage you. We do want you as a therapist in this state. This is a very, very, very annoying issue. And we are going to work, especially at the BHEC level, to get this resolved.
All right, thank you. We are adjourned at 10:55 a.m. We will reconvene at 11 a.m.
At ease. You're at ease, not
We're
adjourned.
at ease. Thank you. Man, lawyers. Phone's on. There we go. Welcome back, everybody. It is 11:08 a.m. and we are back in session. Christina, the third applicant, please.
There goes. Okay, our third appeal case that we're going to hear today is for Shannon O'Connor, who does have legal representation, Attorney Laurel Clement. This material is in your board packet material. Attorney Clement, we will give you and your client 3 minutes each if you need to provide any additional information, and we do have all of the material in the board packet.
Thank you for allowing me to speak for a few minutes. In 2020, at the age of 25, the applicant committed an ethical lapse of sexual misconduct with a former client. The client did not testify against her, and no evidence has ever been brought forth of harm to the former client. The relationship lasted about 2 months. The applicant has taken full responsibility for her actions. She's completed over 130 ethics hours since her ethical lapse. In my packet of materials, I included for the board 12 other sexual misconduct cases that BHEC has decided that resulted in probation for the respondent. One of these cases was a sexual misconduct relationship that went on for 4 years. The therapist received 2 years of probation. I was very interested on Monday to hear in the leadership listening hour that a suggestion was made by Dr. Joanna Smith that there be a specialized task force for sexual misconduct cases. I agree wholeheartedly with that remark. One of the documents that was prepared for the applicant's trial at SOA was a risk evaluation done by Jeff Fletcher, LPCS, RSOTPS. I realized this morning it was not included in the materials, and I emailed it to Christina this morning. I apologize for the late notice to y'all. It is a 10-page report that ultimately determines that the applicant is a low risk to commit a sexual infraction in the future. Obviously, no malpractice provider would allow him to say no risk. One of the things that makes this report so powerful is that Mr. Fletcher is one of only 22 people in the state of Texas that has the credentials, education, training, and experience to be listed as a deregistration specialist with the state. What that means is that he testifies in criminal court about the risk level of sexual offenders. Again, he found that the applicant was low risk for repeating any sexual misconduct. The applicant still
30 seconds.
This applicant still has her LCDC license. She received a reprimand for the sexual misconduct. She is asking the board to allow her to begin again her journey as an LPC associate and to obtain her 3,000 hours under the supervision of an LPCS. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Is Ms. O'Connor?
No, she's at work. She's at work.
Okay.
Chair Hobart.
Yeah, just about to, Ms. Stubblefield, please enter your statement for the record.
In full disclosure, I was the board member who reviewed this ISC in the beginning. This is a separate matter, and so I don't have to recuse myself, but wanted to have full disclosure.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Okay, board members, any questions? Those of you that have been on the board for a while may recall Ms. O'Connor's prior appearance before us, that it was a separate matter. Can you guys just kind of clarify procedurally just how that played out and then how we got to exactly where we are right now? And this is kind of a first impression for me, and I would want to make sure that we are following any sort of procedural guidelines that from when this has happened in the past. And if there are none, then just kind of give us some instruction on what our lane is, what occurred previously can be considered, and what can't. So, Patrick, please.
Sure. Just real briefly, this matter there was complaints filed. They went to an ISC. Dr. Stubblefield sat on the ISC. It was then it went to SOA. SOA found the violations of sexual misconduct. There's a PFD. It's in your materials. The proposal for decision. Sorry, PFD stands for proposal for decision from the SOA administrative law judge. That found the violations that she did commit sexual misconduct with as an LPC associate with a former client. That then came back to the board for consideration. The board recommended adopting the PFD and made that recommendation to the council. And then the council then entered its final order and decision on October 25th of 2022. Revoking Ms. O'Connor's LPC associate license. That final order was appealed by Ms. O'Connor, and that went to Travis County District Court, and the district court affirmed the council's order revoking her license, and that order was entered on November 3rd of 2023. So this is now a new under the BHEX rules. If someone's been their license has been revoked, they have to wait at least 1 year before they can reapply for their license, or reinstate, sorry, not reapply, but it's a reinstatement of their license. And so everything that was everything was already found, the violations were found. So those facts are been determined. And so you can use, so when she reapplied, staff denied her because we had revoked her less than 2 years ago. And so that's really for the board to consider. We can use that basis of revoking her as a basis to deny her, but you're really, the decision before the board really is. Again,
Can you explain the 2-year requirement? What would be different if?
So under the rules, we won't even consider an application if it hasn't been a year, right? If
Okay.
it was, we revoked them and then 3 weeks later they showed back up and said, hey, I want a new license. We said, no, under the rule, we're not even going to consider the application. So there's a minimum of 1 year that they have to at least wait before we will even consider the application.
And the official date for the revocation was?
Would be the council's order that was on October 25th of 2022. The appeal of it, only if Travis County District Court overturned it, then that would matter. While it was on appeal, her license was revoked, so it didn't stay the revocation of it.
Okay.
So that's why, while it did get appealed, it doesn't impact that. I don't think it impacts that date for reapplication.
Just
So-
wanted to know what day we consider the clock started.
I would consider it the date of the council order, which is the 2022 date of October 25th, 2022.
Okay. So we're still under 2 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're beyond the 1 year, so
Yeah.
but yeah, you're still under 2 years.
Okay.
So the board can again deny based on the previous revocation. It can just flat out approve, or it can approve with conditions. Obviously, those are the three pathways to go. Kind of really for the board's consideration is, so she's been revoked. At what point, what would she need to do? And at what point would the board consider her for reinstatement of her license? I think is kind of the general question, right? Because let's just hypothetically say 30 years pass, she reapplies. Would we use a 30-year-old revocation? Could we? Potentially, but 30 years has passed. It's a long period of time. What are some of those factors that the board would want to look at? What sort of things would the board want her to do to, rehabilitate herself or seem like she would be competent to provide services again?
Do we have any precedents of board action on something comparable to this?
I'm not personally aware of any that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay.
Where we've, I know some people have been revoked, but I can't think of any that have come back within under 2 years, I think. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Okay. And the level of infraction that was caused for the revocation was?
Sexual misconduct. So, yeah.
Okay.
I would have questions to representation. Is there any documentation? I'm looking through our packet again regarding what action the applicant has taken since the last revocation. Any documentation of any personal development, ethics, counseling? Has there been any of that submitted? Just because I don't see it.
Yeah, my understanding, well, yeah, she submitted a statement and I submitted that along with my board materials. And so, although these are not date specific, obviously you can see that some of the CEUs were completed after October 2022. Her statement, do you see that, Miss?
Yes, this is Dr. Muna. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I do see her statement. I was looking for actual documentation in addition to the statement. So documentation of certificates or documentation of signed supervision or documentation of signed professional development outside of her statement.
Yeah, I have all that CLE copies. I'm happy to send those to you. Obviously, I was not aware of exactly what you wanted. I mean, as Patrick said, this is a new situation. She has continued to be sober. She's continued to attend AA. I think one of the issues that led to her ethical lapse was she was using alcohol at that time. And obviously she continues to be a counselor under her LCDC license. She has been gone to counseling and is continuing to do that on an as-needed basis. She is certainly open to any requirements or guidelines that the board requests of her. She did complete more than 3,000 hours of supervision before her license was revoked. She's more than willing to start over again with a supervisor and complete those hours of supervision under an LPCS. Does that answer your questions?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Yeah, I was just looking for something post revocation that would have been included in our packet. Prior to the board making any recommendations of any kind, I just wanted to see what was already done and submitted on her own behalf by her. But that does answer my question. Thank you.
I have a question for the board and potentially council. It was brought up in Ms. Clement's presentation or testimony that there had been 12 other cases where the board had decided on probation rather than revocation. And just trying to understand what's the precedent here and maybe why. I'm assuming it's because this seems like kind of willful acts here, but just trying to figure out why this was a revocation and not a probation like these other 12 or even what those other 12 are referring to.
Well, she said BHEC cases, so I don't know if those were social work or psychology or LMFT, which are all under their own separate rules. So I'm not sure specifically which cases she's referring to. And also, since I don't know what those cases are, I can't tell you if they were mitigating factors or in this case, it looks like she got caught lying about it. So I think that definitely would have kind of amped it up a little bit.
I provided all those copies to you, to Christina DeLuna when I sent in my packet. So the cover sheet for that is a list of 13 cases. I accidentally listed one twice. And then copies of all the board orders attached to that. And you should have received that copy of information because I sent it to Christina DeLuna several weeks ago.
But anyway, so we have, mitigating factors that can, increase something, reduce something. My chief hesitation is going to be the fact that, our board member here who sat on the case and then was later ratified by the board and then also by SOA felt so strongly about the case that it was revocation, not a 2-year suspension, not a probated suspension for a decade. So those would be my chief concerns.
If I can also add, one sort of distinction in looking at some of those agency orders is those are typically disciplinary actions. So each one has its own aggravating, mitigating circumstances. They've looked at it at an ISC, and sometimes some of those circumstances are put in the order. Sometimes they're not necessarily, but really what's before the board is a licensing matter. And so the disciplinary matter was already taken to revoke her. So those orders, whether or not to give a probated suspension or to revoke a license, whatever that the board, the agency order at that time was really looking at the discipline the licensee at that time. She's already been disciplined. She already lost her license in this particular instance. And so we're really looking at a licensing matter, right? So I think the comparison is what when you're looking at those old orders is what would you do in maybe a disciplinary matter. This is separate for does that I hope I'm making the distinction clear?
It does, but it's not really correct though in theory, right? Because because she was punished, but now we're talking about essentially unpunishing her or changing her punishment, right? So her punishment was that her license was revoked and that she is no longer a licensed professional counselor. She's essentially asking us, and I recognize that that's not what the legal or the application is, but by approving this with, just after a year, essentially all we're doing is changing a revocation from a year-long suspension is kind of what we're doing. So it's challenging for me to not see it that way.
Ms. Clement, this is Daryl Spinks. Do you know the victim in this, the gentleman, the patient that your client had the sexual relationship with? Do you know, is he still alive?
My understanding is he's not alive. I think thank you for asking about him. One of the important things is that after my client terminated the relationship, he actually followed her and moved into her apartment complex and basically stalked her. And she ended up moving to Austin to get away from him. So he was a 35-year-old man.
Did he die by his own hand?
I'm sorry, what?
Did he die by his own hand?
I don't know. I don't know that information.
Okay. And Miss O'Connor, you said she was at work, and that's why she's not here today?
Yeah, I believe she just started a new job and was unable to get the time off.
Okay. I'm just trying to me, that sounds odd as I'm sitting here. I'm like, you're asking for a license back, a critical thing in your life that you need, but she's not here. What are we to infer from that?
Well, what I think you can take from that is she has extreme confidence in her attorney to represent her well in front of the board.
Are we ready for a motion?
Yeah.
So, Mr. President, Mr. Chair, I just want to say that, and I don't know her attorney, she may be 5 stars. But I would like to have heard from the person today myself to ask a few questions.
Thank you, Brenda.
I mean, I'm happy if we reset this to make sure that the applicant is present. I obviously was not aware of licensing hearings or what the preference of the board members are. So I'm happy to do that. I also, I guess, would like some feedback from the board members. If you don't approve this, is it a matter of just being 1 or 2 years from having the license revoked? Would that make a difference if it were 5 years? Or what could I say to my client to kind of let her know what her chances are with the LPC board in getting reinstated in the future? Obviously, she is very dedicated to the counseling profession, continues to work as an LCDC, and I guess I would just like to give her that information.
I don't know if we have a specific time frame that we're comfortable with. I think it's fact dependent on every case.
I think it's also important to keep in mind for Ms. Clement and the public, when a licensee is disciplined, it's not always about just that licensee. There are other factors. There's incapacitation. There is public protection. We have to factor more things in, Ms. Clement, than just your particular client. We've got to figure out what is viewed as deterrence for others that might fall into this kind of a bad behavior. So I don't know that it's fair. I don't know that we can sit up here and give you a mathematical formula to say, once you've done these things, that will then entitle you to a reinstatement. Chair, I don't mean to step out of line here. I just feel like I just wanted to make sure that was on the record that there's more than just the licensee at issue here.
That's a good.
I agree completely.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, whatever the board determines, I do encourage some sort of sexual misconduct task force. I know that I personally have represented what I consider to be predators who've received less than revocation. I know that I have seen cases in which people have questionable ability to do counseling and have continued to have their license. I would encourage you to encourage BHEC to devise some sort of plan to equalize the disciplinary action between the different attorneys. Looking at the board orders, I think I saw 4 different attorneys that were 4 or 5 actually that were representing BHEC in those situations. And I'm very concerned about allowing predators to continue to practice. And I'm very concerned about the fact that we do not have equal treatment of therapists across the board in sexual misconduct cases.
Dr. Stubblefield, do you have anything to add to this? I know that you've.
I guess I sit kind of in the same position of, I would have liked to have had the opportunity to ask questions to the applicant if this were, I mean, we're spending our time here. And so,
Thank
but
you.
no other comment.
Public members, this is another example of can you go home tonight and live with yourself based on the decision that you made?
I don't know if we can reschedule when she can be here. I'd like to hear from the woman.
I would rather not reschedule it, but just
Or just
procedurally.
like next time or whatever. Yeah, we can proceed with the motion, but yeah, I just think I would like to hear from the actual licensee.
Yeah,
we can certainly reapply if the denial is the answer today, or we can continue it to the next meeting, whichever is the board's choice.
We'll remind everybody, we had somebody come in from Singapore today.
Yeah.
Not that hard to get here.
And I guess for me, just so you know, Ms. Clement, like there's a lot of documentation. I read through all of it, but for me, I just feel like I can't get all of the facts unless I speak to everyone who is involved as much as possible. And since it is her license, it's hard to make any determination without her here.
I understand.
Go ahead, Ms. Winston.
Mr. Chair, if I could just, I'm sorry, it's hard for me to see. So
Hey, Brenda, let me give Ms. Winston a chance, then I'll get to you.
No, I was just going to make a motion that we deny and she can reapply when she's present.
That's fine.
But if
Okay, we do have a motion of denial, and it was seconded by Dr. Amuna. Specific discussion on the motion on the table. Ms. Campanone, did you have something to add now that we have a motion?
just wanted to be clear, just kind of moving back around what Dr. Mona said earlier. You know, she was asking really the questions about, was there counseling, was there ethics, personal development. You know, those are things that being on the board for some time, you know, we might ask you of that person. You know, we want to know how you grew from this, what did you learn, how have you moved forward, you know, what those kinds of things. And that's just not here today. So I'm definitely ready to vote on this.
Yeah, we don't have a factual dispute here. The question is taking a look at any and all mitigating factors. Do those mitigating factors outweigh what the already extensively adjudicated decision was? That's what it comes down to me. And personally, it doesn't. The mitigating factors offered here do not outweigh it. And, you know, the recency also, that comes into it with me. This was not that long ago that Christina and I sat in the room up there on the 7th floor when the first time we heard from them, and that was somewhat recently. So that's my position. We do have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
I'd just like to say, I think at some point we need to talk about some type of timelines and precedents for this type of stuff. I do believe people can be rehabilitated. I agree with you that it hasn't been a long enough time and she's not here to speak and there's a lot of other things. But we, at the same time, we shouldn't just keep people wondering as best we can.
I'll just add, if I may, for the cases that I have been privy to your point, Chair, mitigating circumstances and evidence does play a role in each case. And so there's a difference if we would have came here today without the individual being present, and it was in the past 18 months, I have gone to these classes, these are my CEUs, these are the trainings that I've gone to, these are supervisors who can attest that I've gone through XYZ to try and be a better clinician, the individual wouldn't need to be here. And so in the lack of having tangible evidence of professional development, self-improvement, and it would still have to be, enormous to override what has already been adjudicated, that would help with the difference between why this was a revocation and as opposed to a suspension. So those things matter.
Dr. Bradley, I know you wanted to speak.
One of the things that I think none of us have mentioned that's pertinent to this case, I think the time issue is pertinent. It's almost like, okay, let me see how quickly I can get this changed. And that bothers me. But the second thing that bothers me, associations have codes of ethics. This is an area that is spoken about and written about in the literature. And it's a very serious violation, serious enough that a lot of violations aren't named in codes of ethics, but this one is. Therefore, I want to know that this ethical misbehavior, violation of a code of ethics, that she agrees, if she's a member of a professional association, to follow, and yet she didn't follow. I want to be convinced that her behavior is changed in the future. And from October 25th to 2022 till today is not enough time to convince me.
Is there any further comment before we vote? Okay, at this time, we will take the vote on whether to deny the applicant. Please indicate by raising your right hand if you are voting to deny. Okay, and that looks like all 9. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Let's go ahead and move on. Item number 5. Oh, we have, we need to reconsider who our vice chair is. Who is our current vice chair?
You guys do this to me every year.
Yeah.
Every year.
Dr. Taylor has served very admirably as our vice chair. He's done a fantastic job, but this is a position that's open for discussion. And I'll now open it up for any sort of discussion regarding how we feel about Dr. Taylor. He has indicated that he would like to continue serving in this capacity. He has done a fantastic job, and I will let you speak a little about what you've done, what you would like to do, and how how you feel as though this job should be done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not going to answer any of that. I'm just going to say I really appreciate this position. It is an honor to serve the state of Texas in any way I can. I am grateful to be here, and I am, more than happy to continue doing this wonderful work.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Taylor. Does anybody have anything to add on? Go ahead, Ms. Campanone.
Dr. Taylor has gone beyond for this board. He has attended, if we've had 3,000 meetings. He's attended 3,001. He's the one who has taken that step forward to be a part of presentations and different things for the board that I myself have not had that time. His dedication is there. His passion is there. I would love to see him stay on as VP, and I would love to see him one day as chair. But that's me.
Watch out, Steve. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you, Ms. Campanelli. Does anybody have anything to add to that? And also, if you feel as though someone else is capable or might warrant consideration for this position, you can throw that out there. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Hall.
As a public member, I would love to see someone else be considered for the vice chair. I mean, I think of Dr. Amona, and I think of Dr. Bradley. I think of other people that I think have really had a great impact on this board. And as a public member, I've learned a lot about the profession that I'm going into from everyone, but it would be really great to see what other people would do in that role as well. So those are just some of the names that I think about, but others as well.
Okay.
I know it's hard to kind of transition when a person is in a role, but I think it does continue to stimulate the board and give different viewpoints and have different leaders to have an impact that leaders currently have, give other people an opportunity to have impact as well.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hall.
I'll just address, since my name was mentioned, Ms. Hall, soon to be Dr. Hall. Thank you very much for mentioning the possibility of me stepping into that role. I would say that my vote would definitely be for Dr. Taylor, but if the board wanted to consider, kind of like the military does, a succession plan, so that there's actual training and shadowing, so that we're not stepping into a completely new role without training and guidance and information. And if Dr. Taylor would be amenable to that, and the board would be amenable to that, that we kind of develop a succession plan.
Okay. Go ahead, Dr. Bradley.
I appreciate your confidence in what you said, but I'm going to decline at this particular point in my life and my career. I just don't think I can add another duty and do a good job at it.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. All right. Dr. Stubblefield, do you want to add?
I just, because of peer pressure, I'll say, no, I'm just teasing. I echo what Ms. Campagnoni said. Dr. Taylor, you have represented us very well, and I stand behind you. I think you have served as vice chair to a degree that all of us would aspire to. And happy to serve alongside you, to partner with you in any way that I can.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. I try to be a neutral party and on the board, but Chris is fantastic. Anytime I have a question regarding kind of the nuts and bolts of this profession, he's the one I go to, and he's always there for me. And if it's time to kind of turn over the leadership, the representation of our board, if it's more appropriate that a professional member does it, anytime they ask Chris to assume that role, he does it admirably. He does it very capably, and 100% confidence in him when I ask that of him. Because sometimes it is frankly appropriate that representation of this board is better suited by a professional member. I'll acknowledge that, and he's the one I send it to when that is appropriate. That's all I got to say on that. Thank you. So at this point, I need a motion.
I motion that we re-elect Dr. Taylor to his current position.
Thank you, Dr. Is it reappoint or re-elect? Tomato, tomato. Okay, thank you, Dr. Amuna. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Dr. Stubblefield with the second. All in favor of continuing with Dr. Taylor as our vice chair, please raise your hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more year, buddy.
Honored.
And noted that just good stewardship of the board looks ahead to future leadership opportunities. So, Dr. Mina, that's a good point about, hey, I don't think that you can serve on the board forever. And so when you have to leave us when that time is, then let's make a good transition. Okay.
I can.
Similar discussion is on item number 6, who we need to approve a professional member as our designate on the BHEC, the kind of the combined representation of all the 4 mental health boards. What we've been doing is that it's the chair and the vice chair who represent the LPC board. It doesn't have to be that way, but just having served on BHEC with Dr. Taylor, I see his involvement in all the BHEC level activities, and it's the same thing. He does a fantastic job. He always represents the LPC board very, very admirably, very thoroughly. I would put it that way. He does a good job of being the professional voice for Texas counselors at the BHEC level. Dr. Taylor, would you like to continue in your role on the BHEC level?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am honored to do so. It is again, I'll just say the same thing. It is a great pleasure to, serve the state of Texas in any way I can. So thank you.
Okay. Board, what we've been doing is the chair and the vice chair just serve at the BHEC level, but Janie's a good example of when BHEC needs, Dr. Stubblefield is a good example of when BHEC does have the authority and does have what I frankly believe that the foresight to create a special, it was a committee that was created, and Dr. Stubblefield was pulled in to serve as the chair on it. So yes, we do have our 2 LPC representatives at the BHEC level, but that group does a good job of saying somebody else very likely could really do a fantastic job in this role. And so that's when we've requested that Dr. Stubblefield serve as the chair on the Children's Mental Health Subcommittee, and she's done a good job of that. Dr. Taylor, if you're interested in continuing as our second representative, then
it would be my honor, sir.
Okay. Ms. Campanoni?
I just want to add, I definitely have a vote of confidence for Dr. Stubblefield, Dr. Bradley, Dr. Muna, and Dr. Taylor. I think that I want to see, I'm saying this because I feel like this is going to be my last meeting. I've been on this board for a long time, and it's time for me to move on and serve on other things. And so I'm hoping that who replaces me, will work great with the rest of you. But I really have enjoyed working with all of you, and I feel like I want to see all of you in some role, whether it's VP or chair, whatever it is, and even the excuse me, public members. I want to see that because we've got some strong public members, including our chair. Like, they don't just sit there and, not say anything. I love it. I love this board. So I hope one day when I'm sitting on the other side that I see all these roles change. But it's been so amazing to have been with all you guys. It has been. So that's it. No tears.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you, Brenda.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move. we appoint Dr. Taylor, reappoint Dr. Taylor.
Okay, Ms. Winston has made a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second.
Sean with the second. Any discussion regarding the motion? All in favor of re-electing Dr. Taylor as our representative at the BHEC level, please raise your hand.
Thank you.
And that passes as well.
That's 2 years, right? 2 years.
2 years? Okay. Moving on, number 7, any possible action for orders to be executed by the chair. Christina confirmed that we have none today.
There are none.
Thank you. And item 8, third quarter orders, please.
So we had 9 respondents and 10 cases that have already been executed by the executive director.
Okay. Board,
Someone had 2 cases, correct?
you've had an opportunity to review those orders. Any specific questions for either our board administrator or staff? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to item number 9, reports review. Christina, please.
Yes, so all of the reports are in your board packet material. If you had any questions on that, we can try and go ahead and answer any of those for you. Pretty basic.
Yeah, looks good. Okay. Any, again, board members, you've had the information in your packets. Are there any specific questions regarding third quarter performance measures, enforcement complaints, or enforcement compliance? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move forward. Item 10 is SOA matters. Christina, please confirm that we have none today.
There are none.
Thank you. Number 11, I just kind of alluded to it. Dr. Stubblefield, can you give us a report on the status of the Children's Mental Health Strategic Plan Subcommittee?
Yes, Chair. So the Children's Mental Health Strategic Plan Subcommittee has been meeting since last fall. Through the spring quite frequently. Just an update on the progress. The committee has completed a number of things, including their mission vision, different presentations from community stakeholders. At this point, the rough draft of the report has been completed. That includes all the terms that were outlined from the governor's office with recommendations from the 5 work groups being governance, service array, family and youth voice, workforce, and metrics and outcomes. The writers of those reports have been finalizing and wordsmithing everything along with the graphics that are included in that. The final so as a committee, we have been looking at that report for the last couple of weeks, and our final recommendations to that report are due today. I will tell you there are 2 items specific to this body that I wanted to report on, and that in that report, it includes a recommendation that our legislators allow the opportunity for counselors and social workers to join their respective compacts. And so that committee is also including the support for counselors to join those compacts. And then also, again, with the resolutions that we have in place that we'll be discussing today for third-party payers to look at the reimbursement rates that they're offering. So we are in the final review and revision of that report. We are on task to have that report submitted to the governor's office by that December 1 deadline.
That's fantastic. Again, Janie, thank you for not only representing LPCs, but representing BHEC as a whole. The feedback I've heard has been tremendous regarding the work that you've done. So,
I'd like to say thank you to the LPC board, to BHEC staff, and to the BHEC council, and for the opportunity. It has, I shared with Daryl, it is always educational to see all the other behind the curtain workings that happen in our state so that we see how the individuals in our state are served. This, in this case, how children are served and how we can better serve children.
Yeah.
So.
Daryl, I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you give us maybe a little bit of insight of how this is going to be used during the legislative session? Are we going to, is this going to be, we're looking at bills and we refer back to the recommendations in the report? How is this going to be utilized starting in February?
Well, coincidentally, let's see, it was 2 days ago, September 18th, the Senate Health and Human Services Committee had an interim charge hearing over at the Capitol. Mr. Romig, myself, and a couple of members from the psychology board, they were asked to go over there. So Robert and I accompanied them. Basically, the focus of that hearing was how do we deal with the acute mental health care needs for children in the state? And then it was also workforce-driven issues and concerns. And this report that Janie was working on actually came up. It was actually mentioned in the hearing. It's not finalized yet, so they kind of said, "Hey, we know this is in the works. It's coming up." So they're kind of waiting to see what that is. That's how it's going to come into play, because I think you're going to see workforce, the acute care needs for children in the mental health sphere is probably going to be a pretty big issue this go around this session. And I think that's how it's going to come into play. And this will kind of give them, you kind of have say a statewide standardized approach, a suggested pool of changes to make from this group, so that they're not fielding everything, from all over the place. You've got kind of a consolidated recommendation, if you will, from workforce professionals like Dr. Stubblefield there. So.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Since I've been on the board, this is really one of the most significant projects I've seen BHEC tackle, and I appreciate your efforts, Janie. Any questions for her?
I would just say thank you. I remember when that opportunity was presented before the board, and I was like, oh my goodness, no. And Janie was like, yes, I will, absolutely. And so I'm just proud that you took up that helm and you're representing us extremely and exceedingly well.
Well, Dr. Munya, actually, Dr. Stubblefield said no, but I said, well, you're not getting your reimbursement if you don't say yes. So that was really how that played out.
This is being recorded, Daryl.
Well, I mean, all joking aside, we went to the chair at BHEC and we said, we think we have the perfect person for you. And from everything I can tell, you've been the perfect person. So thank you.
I think she's to be especially commended for all her hard work and successful work too.
Thank
Okay.
you.
The fact that we've already Daryl kind of brought it up, just kind of going off of the hearings over at the Capitol a couple days ago. I'm going to call an audible here, and we are going to move item number 14 up. This is Vice Chair Taylor brought this up. He wanted to give us a little bit of discussion from NBCC, and this is going to be a good transition from what we just discussed to before we bring up our pending resolutions. So item number 14 is now moving up to right now. Go ahead, Dr. Taylor.
Yeah, I understood that everybody else was sick and unable to attend, so I got elected. So, but me and Robert had a wonderful time in Puerto Rico at the NBC conference. It's always wonderful to chat with our other our counterpoints in other states. It's also a good time for them to learn from us. But we had some really great conversations with our neighboring states, which was great, the ones that were there. And so, we are going to continue to develop those relationships to make working with your patients in those states easier as best we can. We've opened those conversations, in lieu of a counseling compact, or even when it does happen, because I believe it's a when, not an if, but even if it does, even when it happens, we'll still have easier relationships with Oklahoma and Arkansas and Louisiana and our those 5 states or what. I didn't do good in geography. So we opened those conversations. There was a lot of talk about the counseling compact, which was wonderful, very enlightening to hear and learn about how the approval process will work. So even though, you're in the compact, you're not in it for every state. You have to get your privilege in each state, and there's a fee that's associated with that has to be paid every year. So that was, I thought, very interesting and very educational. So we got that information. And then we also, talked a lot, Robert and I talked a lot about what we'll introduce here in a little bit, which is this resolution, which kind of mirrors a lot of the other problems that the other states are having as well. So we're not alone in this. And it was a great conference to go to, and just, so wonderful to be in that group of individuals and talk about mental health on a national stage. So it was a good conference.
Robert, your thoughts on the conference? What's the pulse of the profession? And
It was very good. I was very sad that Dr. Taylor didn't come out on the salsa dance floor.
Oh, I was at the casino, man. Dice.
No, it was a very good conversation, and I think our fellow states struggle with the same things that we do in terms of not only the interstate mobility, but also good conversations among the board administrators about AI and technology use and how that's starting to work into both our administration of the agency, but also into people's practices. So good conversations of current topics.
Personal thank you to both of you guys for representing us.
Absolutely. We send Sean next year, I think.
Yeah, speaking of that, and I don't want to jump the gun here, but I understand and I agree about the compact, and I know how important it is. I do want to bring up something that I think not a lot of people think about, because you don't see it every day as I see it every day. I think there's a pressing issue that first has to be resolved before joining the compact, but I will allow y'all to decide that because it's your industry, really not mine. The insurance companies, if you sign this compact, Healthcare Services Corporation, HCSC, is probably a company that you've never heard of. It is a holding company that holds Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Oklahoma, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, Montana, and New Mexico. They are the lead investor in a company called Headway. Headway is essentially a platform where therapists, not just LPCs, but therapists can go and find clients. And I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but it is causing your reimbursement rates to decrease. Well, they've been decreasing for 24 years consecutively now, but it's gotten to the point where your profitability from an insurance standpoint is going to threaten any brick and mortar practice that is not scaled by an insurance company. Unfortunately, in the world of counseling, the insurance companies have done it differently, at least in primary care medicine and other specialties. The insurance companies bought the practice, so the owners of the practice at least got a payday. When it comes to the counseling industry, they're creating these platforms. So Alma is another great example. Alma is owned or was started by the former CEO of, I believe, Cigna or Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama or something like that. So I just want you to realize, if you were to sign this compact, your competition is not with other therapists from other states. You will be competing against Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, Optum, Aetna, Cigna, Humana, and the list goes on. So I just want you to realize, until we resolve this vertical integration, which I do believe is a conflict of interest, and I do believe it will get resolved at some point, I would caution against the compact.
questions, comments on that?
Yes. So one of the reasons why the compact is important is because from a therapist's point of view, we go back to the COVID times where there was many bad things that happened initially. We didn't have a shot at that time that could help us, and there was a shortage of mental health workers and all those kinds of things. And I know that our governor, Abbott, who is so supportive, opened up and allowed us to be able to cross over from Texas and to be able to provide services for others who needed that, specifically at the time in New York where it was hit really hard. And so I see what you're saying as far as insurances and reimbursement and, dollar to dollar. I get all of that, but therapeutically, there's a shortage. Mental health is huge. And unfortunately, there's just not enough of us nationwide. And so this is part of why I am for this. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda. Go ahead.
If I may give a little bit of history, that's not a real word. The board has provided a resolution of support previously for the resolution. And with regard to the counseling compact, one of the things that stuck out for the members of the board at that time who voted to go forward with it is that of all of the things that the counseling compact does, it allows Texas to maintain its autonomy in the sense that there's not going to be the counseling compact coming into the state of Texas telling Texas how to do this for their clinicians, but it will open up the door to access for continuity of care, for example. So to Brenda's statement, if I was a clinician during COVID-ish and I had a client for health reasons or family reasons move to another state, I had to legally sever that tie, even if they had been my client for 10, 15 years, where the reins loosened a little bit during COVID, and the counseling complex with 37 states-ish are already in would allow continuity of care. It's not perfect, so let me say that, but it will allow Texas clinicians to remain Texas clinicians. We like to keep our autonomy. For the 5 minutes that I've been here, I understand that we respect that ability to have our autonomy. And so there are some, if you want to say the lesser of the two evils, the insurance and the reimbursement and the stuff that you mentioned is true. I've heard that as well. But the ability to serve our clients and provide them with the optimal level of well-being regardless seems overwhelming for me to continue my support of the counseling compact resolution.
And let me make myself clear, I'm not against the compact itself. It's not the compact's fault. These insurance companies have very smart, talented attorneys who are making 6-7 figures a year to sit around and crunch these numbers. It would be an unintended consequence of entering the compact. It is not the compact itself. It would be just capitalism at its best, where once you allow other professionals to practice in this state, it won't be predominantly will not be, mom and pop counselors. It's going to open the door for Alma, Headway, Talkspace, which are all owned by the insurance companies or backed by the insurance companies to flood this market. So 90837, the market rate for a master's level LPC from Blue Cross Blue Shield, who owns roughly 40 to 50% of the Texas market, is $92.54 for an hour-long session. My clients are losing money at that rate. That will just continue to go down. In fact, what you're going to end up with is a Magellan situation where it's going to be a value-based care, and they're going to give you thousands and thousands of lives to manage, and they're going to pay you on a fixed fee, and you're just going to figure it out. That's probably going to happen no matter what. So I just want you to understand what you're signing yourself up for. And it's not the compact's fault. My position would be whatever small amount of power I have and we need to petition to the state. The DOJ is already investigating United Healthcare and Optum. You know, Optum,
Can we pause there for a
Yeah.
second? Sorry. I just want to check with our attorney since we've dropped some names, specific numbers here. Do we need to go into like an executive session, or are we okay? Or are we treading a line or anything?
this is all public knowledge.
No, I know, but I just, we're using specific names. So I just want to check.
No, I don't.
We're good?
I-
Okay,
yeah,
great.
I don't see any
Great.
problems.
Great. Thank you, sir.
So
We should, I should probably just clarify for the meeting and the record. I think we have moved on to agenda item 12. We're now pretty clearly discussing that.
So anyways,
Yeah,
I'm not against the compact to you guys. I just want you to be aware of all the consequences.
We sort of flowed into it. Yeah. And just to be absolutely clear, no decision on our part can get us into the counseling compact. It requires legislative action.
I understand. I just
Our resolution was basically an acknowledgement of what we can do. And the resolution that was passed 2 years ago indicates our support for Texas membership because we believe it would be good for the citizens of Texas, and here are the reasons why.
But how much more powerful to write a resolution that says this would be good for the state of Texas after we figure out how to get the insurance companies out of owning our therapists and doctors?
That's not in our purview. Yeah.
So
It's the same recommendation you're making to the legislator. You're just making the recommendation to the legislators.
We're not making a recommendation to the legislature. We're considering a resolution to why we believe it is beneficial for Texans. And the majority of that is continuity of care, ease of licensure.
Welfare of the client.
Welfare,
And I'm not debating. I don't think you understand where I'm coming from. I'm not debating any of that. You're telling me it's out of your purview to write. We would like to do all of these things, but here's public knowledge that would show unintended consequences due to this massive conflict of interest, just so people would be aware and know. You can't do that.
I think that's an assumption that we're not going to be willing to make.
Okay.
Well, first I want to invite you to say we, Sean, because the governor appointed you here, and I'm very interested in your thoughts and opinions. Rather than you guys, I want to hear we, because you're a part of us now. So we.
Look, at least I got it out here. I think you think I'm against your compact. I'm not against your compact. All my clients want to join the compact. I don't want to make my clients upset. I don't want to make you guys upset. But I'm telling you, until this elephant in the room is figured out, it's y'all's industry. Good luck.
Well, so is there like a specific conversation that you want to have that we could put on the next agenda? So we can get that as like a specific agenda item. And
I think it should be, I mean, frankly, my opinion, if you're asking my opinion, I think it should be illegal for insurance companies to have any type of ownership in any type of medical, mental health provider, period. Now, I understand I can't just write that letter and make it happen, but the issue is people don't understand what's going on. And so I will make them aware and use whatever platform I have. And it sucks that it comes up to in a way, you guys are gonna have to sacrifice something, because I'm not arguing that the compact isn't good. But if you have a broken leg and a broken pinky, you got to fix a broken leg first.
Go ahead, Joe.
I think it's where we got to be careful is where we start asking or recommending that the legislature or really any other elected or deliberative body do something. I think it's okay if we put something on an agenda for a future meeting and say we want to talk about this and how, if this compact were to pass, this is the impact we think it could have on the profession. Because there you're just identifying the what ifs and the coulds. It's when you get into where I would caution you to go against is starting to make any kind of recommendation to the legislature or the governor's office. You need to take this particular action, or in a general action, take a general position. I wouldn't do that. I would just just limit yourself to, just like a resource witness when we go over and testify. I don't comment on the wisdom or lack thereof of anything. I just say, this is how it will play out, or here's what we would need to implement that, and then stop.
And I agree, and I apologize for getting a little emotional. This is very near and dear to my heart. It's why I left my corporate job, was this exact issue. I left a $300,000 a year job and almost lost my house starting my company over this. Okay.
Okay.
So it hurts when I care more about you guys than you seem to care about yourselves. Sometimes hurts my heart, breaks my heart. But that's all I was saying is what Daryl said, is we can write out all the great things that the compact's going to do. And oh yeah, by the way, here's some unintended consequences based on the patterns and what's going on by these insurance companies.
Sean,
So-
and I just want to say, I hear your passion. I do. But I just want you to know that we are now a board. And if we go and we read back the rules and our ethics, you know, we have a responsibility to protect our public, to provide them as many services as we can. And it was difficult for me during COVID times to sit back and watch initially how I couldn't just cross state lines to go and offer my services and those things. And when that became a possibility, I wanted to do that. I wanted to be New York. I wanted to be wherever they needed me to be. And that's really what we're saying is we want to be able to offer opportunities, anytime that we can. But
Ma'am, with all due respect, no one is really stopping you. I work with clients who work in other states.
Okay.
Chair.
Yes.
Brenda, were you done? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, Sean, I respect your perspective on it and your passion. And I'm not here to argue with you on that. I completely respect what you're saying, okay?
Go ahead, Dr. Stubblefield.
First of all, Sean, welcome to the board. And we are very glad you're here, and I'm very glad that you are shining some light on pieces of our industry that, quite frankly, as professionals, we feel are outside our circle of control. Okay. When it comes to the compact, and I just wanted to give a piece that that I have firsthand knowledge to, is through my service on the Children's Mental Health Strategic Plan. Some of the things that came up is that licensees felt the board did not support the compact. And I shared with that committee the resolution that we had written 2 years ago. And that's why I came back and said, hey, I think we need to just put a new date on it to make sure that our members understand that the board is in favor of this, that this is a legislative measure that needs to be changed. And I would welcome the stakeholders in the room to continue to share that message with licensees that in terms of continuity of care and licensure portability and things like that, the board does support this. And I would hope that the members, along with stakeholders, would continue to reach out to those legislators. And we are going to there's going to be a huge ripple effect. And so there's going to be more work that needs to be done. But today we're sitting here saying, from what we're looking at and as the mental health professionals, we are putting this resolution with today's date on the calendar so that we can take this step forward, understanding that there's 10,000 other steps that are going to need to be taken for any kind of parity and any kind of changes that need to be made in our industry. And I would love to be able to have the conversations with those insurance providers so we could all partner together and not have such animosity. But that's not on our table today. So thank you, Chair.
And if I may really briefly add, to co-sign on what Dr. Stubblefield was saying, essentially what was presented today for that section for 12 is that we have supported the compact in the past. and we're just reaffirming our support. And as an Islander, I will tell you that I'm very much from the concept of and not or. So it's not a matter of we do this or that. We can definitely add a new date to the resolution saying that we support just like we did before. And now let's have side conversations about what other resolutions we may need to put forward that relate to insurance. But it's not a or, it's definitely an and situation. We can support the compact by just adding a new date and then have conversations, especially with someone of your expertise, about what other things we need to be doing separate. And I think a lot of times when we do things in mental health and we present it to the legislator, it doesn't make it because other things are added to something that should be very simple and clean. And then it doesn't get passed. But if we're able to send this and something else, as opposed to a compact or insurance, I think we can very much find compromise with both.
Right. And I think my only point was if you send what you want to send, and I'm probably going to end up voting for it because, like I said, 3 or 4 times, my issue is not with the compact.
Yep.
And it were to get passed, it's pretty much game over. Like, you got to fix this other issue first, or at least make people aware and hope that it gets fixed before you open the door, because it won't take long. It's already happened to the extent of what Alba and Headway and all these other ones have already done to your industry. Think about when those same platforms, now every single LPC counselor in the entire United States can treat in Texas like that.
So what we want to do,
You won't,
I think-
you're not,
I think what we want to do is, I'm very interested in what you have to say, Sean, and I would love for you to work with Christina in getting an item on our next agenda. And so we can have that larger discussion and so we can learn from you and see what kind of options or suggestions you have. And then we can do this now and then that later. Does that sound good to you?
yeah, that's, I think
Okay,
that's good.
great.
Yeah.
Sean, to your knowledge, is the insurance industry lobbyists, are they really working to get this passed in our legislature?
I have no idea at the state level, but I know at the federal level, the insurance lobby is huge. For example, Optum is the largest employer of physicians in the United States, and Optum is owned by United Healthcare. So you can think about that for a moment.
Okay.
And so I'm a CPA. So what's happening is, to make it as simple as possible, is when the ACA was passed, certain changes were made to Medicare Advantage plans. Okay. So Medicare Advantage plans are basically subsidized Medicare, but run through the third-party insurance companies. Those subsidies have run out. And so there is a 2030 agenda item for CMS for alternative payment models and value-based care. I'm not going to say good or bad on those things, but what I am going to say is the dollars are running thinner. And so what's been happening is the insurance companies are buying directly into physician practices, which, if they were doing that in mental health, it'd actually be better for you guys. It wouldn't be great, but it'd be better for you guys because at least you get a payday. If you had a practice like Dr. Taylor, you make a nice chunk of change by selling it to the insurance company. As an example, just as a devil's advocate, as an example. In mental health, they've provided these platforms, which is whatever. Long story short, when you look at the financial statements of the insurance companies, it's called a medical charge ratio. So all the premium dollars that come in, a certain amount have to go out to be paid. So what's happening is any losses at the practices, it's basically an intercompany elimination. It's an accounting trick. And I understand that there's record profits at the insurance companies, but profits are not cash flow, and the cash flow is straining up. And that's why you're seeing, for example, the reimbursements going to where they're at and what the insurance companies are doing. They're running super lean. You can't barely get a hold of anyone there. You get one network manager that manages an entire state of Texas that sits in Minneapolis for an entire specialty. The dollars have run out. I don't know who's going to be left holding the bag, but right now it's looking like providers are going to be left holding the bag. So just keep that in mind. And the American public.
Go ahead, Dr. Bradley.
As we continue this discussion, I can't help but think we have 37 states that have joined this compact. Do we know or have any way of knowing what their experience has been? I need some data here from the states that are actually participating in the compact.
And Dr. Bradley, my understanding is the compact is not active yet.
It's not active.
It's not active yet. They've joined it, but there's no, like the database is not built yet, and they don't have, and they don't have the privilege. Yeah, it's in the process. They don't, it's not active, so they don't know.
Verbally, you can get a lot of information, like from executive directors in other states, like Christina would know.
So again, the counseling compact, no one has like signed up for it yet because they're still in the process of forming that whole thing. Last I heard, I believe it was going to be mid 2025 before states can actually start dumping their data into this new database and all those processes start. So I think at that time, we might know a little bit more about different issues that might be arising.
Thanks.
And I think you're right. The AASCB, who's been involved with this a lot, and then with the compact itself, I know that database is not there and won't be there for a while, but yet we're sitting here with an issue that's pertinent as of today. So I would just like some more information. I mean, I talk to students, I talk to graduates all the time, and I'd say more than 90% of them are for the compact and have said, you know, since Texas is such a large state, why has it not joined? I'm not sure I have a good answer for that, so I'll stop there. But I do think this is an important issue, and it's an, you know, you talked about capitalism. I would venture to say this could be capitalism at its worst, because we've got an issue here that we want to take care of not only our counselors, but the welfare of the client. It's a problem with clients when they move to another state, have a relationship with a counselor in Texas, and then they have to find a new one. It's a problem for you as counselors too. So we've got some issues here, but what I'm hearing from many of the graduates is that they see the compact as very important in their lives. And I'd like to know what other states have experienced, because we've had states in there long enough. That first group of 10 states, what are they experiencing?
Well, Dr. Bradley, they have not experienced anything yet because they cannot activate.
Not in the database, but
No.
They've heard things.
They can't operate.
Yeah.
So essentially, the states that are in the compact have just added their name to a list, but they have not made any action at all. Their name is just on a list, sitting somewhere floating, but nothing has been done. And the resolution is that, do we want our name added to a list for when things actually begin? But not as soon as we send the resolution, like we'll be seeing clients tomorrow. So the 37 approximate states all they've done to this point to to simplify it, and I apologize if it's an oversimplification, is that they've just agreed to have their name on the list, but nothing tangible has been done yet.
Right.
Yeah, I know nothing tangible, but okay, I'll stop there. We do need some data here.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, I will, I do have contact with the executive director for the counseling compact. I will reach out to him and see if there's anything he's aware of, anything he's heard of, just anything that's floating around out there that they are seeing. So I'll try and get that information for y'all.
Great. Should we call for a vote to uphold the resolution?
Honestly, I'm a little apprehensive about moving forward on this. It seems like it's something that I have viewed for years now as a net positive, has more questions on it than we realized. But yeah, if someone wants to make a motion that we adopt the resolution, you're free to make a motion.
I move that we adopt the resolution as written.
Okay.
I second.
Okay. We do have a motion to adopt the resolution as written, and we do have a second from Dr. Bradley. This is substantively, it's the original motion or the original resolution that we adopted 2 years ago. Why we believe that Texas membership in the compact is beneficial. I mean, and that's the gist of it. And that's about the extent of that we can do. We believe it is beneficial, and we listed the reasons why we believe it is beneficial. That is our sandbox. That's what we can do here. Sean's bringing up good points. Ultimately, whether there are repercussions, if there are perhaps unanticipated but possible consequences, how does that factor in on what we believe to be the beneficial aspects?
I'm just frankly surprised. I've known about this since 2019. I'm surprised no one's ever, it hasn't even started. Like, there's no data. We're going to put our name on something without data. That's exactly how we got into this mess with the ACA, that no one read the bill and it got passed. So, y'all, like I said, it's been second in vote. I'm going to vote with my conscience. So
go, Robert.
Just to clarify that, make sure we're under all understanding the compact. It is not enforced yet. The resolution would simply be supporting the benefits of the compact and asking the legislature to consider it. We advise y'all to go only that far because of the prohibition against lobbying. And I think having a robust discussion about the role of insurance in providers is a related but tangential discussion, because all of those providers would necessarily still have to apply and get credentials through the compact individually. The compact does not have a facility license or a ownership license. So every individual provider who is employed by any of those insurance plans or otherwise would still individually have to apply through the compact and get credentials. So they are very related but separate conversations.
The other thing and this comes out of the workforce study, is that a full 50% of our licensees don't accept insurance. They are private practice owners who also are would have an interest in participating in the compact for the service that they offer. And so insurance does impact a lot of us, but it doesn't impact all of us.
yeah, but for self-pay, okay. Okay. Yeah,
And I can say some of this did come up in the legislative hearing just a couple days ago. It is not a unilaterally good or bad only option as far as the compact, because you are talking about availability of providers in other states to work in Texas and vice versa. And so it is certainly an option should the board be concerned. There may be benefits to Texas providers to be able to practice in other states. Whether that benefits the state of Texas is an open question. Is that what benefit are you talking about? The benefit to Texas providers or the benefit to Texas patients? Those are different populaces. Is the availability of other providers in other states to provide services to Texas patients a net benefit to the state compared against the potential competition in the marketplace for Texas licensees? These are all complex considerations, and so it's not a simple statement of what is it overall better or worse to be in the compact. That is a subjective decision that you as the board can, as far as the resolution goes, supporting taking everything into account, overall positive or negative support for the compact.
And I just think directly, if there's no data, it's not even functioning, and it's been 5 years, it's not something I'm going to put my name on. Not until it's not, I mean, we don't know the benefits. You don't know the benefits.
How familiar are you with the nursing compact?
Not very.
Okay. I mean,
but I know that nurses
in addressing your concerns. What?
But
Site compact.
I know that nurses aren't the same level of providers. I guess you can do, there's certain nurse practitioners who can directly see patients and bill for insurance and stuff. So I would say it's not even apples to apples if you're going to compare someone who can get paneled with insurance to a nurse.
Is this popping up in SIPAC?
Again, nurses are mid-level providers, so it's going to be completely separate issues.
He's speaking about psychologists. But we're not here to discuss either of those. There's a motion on the floor, Mr. Chair. Would you like to?
Hang on, I had a question for Patrick. Is this coming up in SIPAC?
The issue of insurance ownership of providers, no, it has not really come up.
Okay.
With in SIPAC or really been brought up at all. No.
Okay. All right. Well, we do have a motion on the floor to adopt the resolution. At this time, we'll call the vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, that is 8 in favor. All opposed? And 1 abstention. Moving forward, we do have another resolution for consideration.
So this came out of what Robert and I discussed while we were at the conference, and a little bit of what you're kind of after, Sean. I got a brief statement I've written. This is my first statement I've written, so I'm excited about it. My fellow board members, staff, esteemed guests, and ladies and gentlemen of the public of the great state of Texas, we are here today not just to acknowledge a problem, but to stand at the forefront of a necessary solution. The mental health of our state is in crisis. And while we as licensed professional counselors are equipped to tackle this challenge head on, the truth is simple. There is simply not enough of us. The numbers speak volumes. As of August 31st, 2024, Texas had 36,495 active licensed professional counselors and counselor associates. While that might sound sufficient, when you break it down, we're looking at a ratio of roughly 848 Texans to every counselor. Now imagine those numbers in the most underserved areas of our state. In rural towns, along our borders, in our communities struggling with poverty, substance abuse, and the unique needs of the youth and aging populations here, this ratio climbs even higher. This is where the cracks in our systems are most visible. Places such as Uvalde, where we feel it the worst. This resolution isn't just about acknowledging the workforce shortage, it's about tackling meaningful action. We are committed to working with state agencies, educational institutions, private insurers, and our professional organizations to ensure that we are doing more than talking. We need real strategies to grow our ranks, remove the barriers that stand in the way of licensure, and make it easier for new professionals to join our field. With these barriers in mind, Robert and we went looking. This resolution is only a sample of what we found. We must incentivize this profession, making sure that those stepping into this vital work know they are supported financially, educationally, and professionally. We must call for increased funding to support not only the training, but the recruitment and retention of LPCs, especially in those communities that need it the most. And let us not forget one of the most glaring issues, reimbursement. We call on private insurance companies to step up, review your reimbursement process, increase rates, and reduce barriers to network access. And know this, if you believe because you're bigger, you should benefit more, shame on you. All you are doing is reducing market access, devaluing mental health in this state. Texas LPCs deserve fair compensation for the work, not just to attract more counselors, but to ensure they can spend time providing quality care rather than bickering over fair reimbursement for a service that is necessary to the health of our population. Our public deserves better access, and Texas counselors deserve the proper support to give it to them. This resolution is about securing the future of mental health in Texas. It's about showing the people of this state that we will not turn away from their needs, that we will fight to ensure every person has access to the care they deserve. Our work saves lives, and it's time we give ourselves the tools to continue that work. Together, let's adopt this resolution not as a formality, but as a declaration of our commitment to the future of mental health care in Texas, and God willing, together, we can ensure none of our children ever endure another Uvalde. Let's sign this thing.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Anything to add to that?
So I negotiate with the insurance companies on a day-to-day basis. Anything that we can do to get them to actually do their job, frankly, is a step in the right direction. And I get it. They're, like I said, they're running lean. There's shortage of dollars everywhere. But the reimbursement rates for, and it's not just you guys, it's across the board, but especially for you guys, are abysmal, absolutely abysmal. I have the market data, so I can say in terms of wealth over the last 24 years, it's about a 30% reduction in wealth when you consider inflation.
Oh, 30% to who specifically?
So, for example, maybe 20 years ago or 10 years ago, the reimbursement rate was not $90 or $88 for Blue Cross Blue Shield. Today it's $92. When you do 10 years of year over year inflation adjustment, even though it's a $4 increase, number one, it's the reductions in the conversion factor, not the dollar amount. But I'm not going to digress into conversion factors for the rates. Anyways, long story short, $92 today is worth like what, $60 10, 15 years ago. So that's what I'm saying. It's about a 30% reduction in your actual wealth, your actual value.
I respect this discussion, but in the interest of time, we gotta focus on this.
I was just
the language of this resolution.
Yeah, I was just commenting on that resolution. That's all.
Board, I trust that everyone has read through the proposed resolution. Any proposed changes? Any Any questions about it? This
have-
has all our names on it.
Yeah, I don't, well written. Thank you very much to all parties involved. Who would this resolution go to and for what purpose?
Nobody, it's just we're just saying it, we're declaring. We're not sending it anywhere that I'm aware of, are we, Robert?
Okay. Any questions regarding the language on the resolution? I need a motion.
A second.
Dr. Taylor made the motion. Dr. Amuna seconded it. Any specific questions regarding the resolution? Hearing none, we will vote at this time. All in favor of the adoption of the proposed resolution, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. That was a lot of work and I appreciate your help.
Okay, item 15 are committee reports. Christina, you have apps, please.
So related to the Application Supervision Issues Committee meeting, they actually did not meet this time around since the last LPC board meeting. They did, they did not review any cases since the last meeting, but they did meet by email to verify, they wanted to discuss alternate ways to verify experience hours for applicants coming from out of state. They are interested in finding another avenue for the individuals that are affected. They are running into some barriers there due to statute law that's written. So they will continue to monitor it. And BHEC has also formed a new committee that will be working on this exact topic. So hopefully we can get some additional information from that as well. Do you want me to go ahead and report on all of the committees? Is that okay? Okay.
Please and thank you.
Professional Development Committee, they also met, met on July 12th, discussed data that was collected so far, related to supervision, the 3-hour and the 5-hour that we talked about last meeting. We're going to continue to monitor and collect data related to this topic and also related to complaints, related to general complaints for supervision and supervision related complaints. And we'll assess the topic again in the next year or two. And then the Counseling Compact Committee met on July 17th and July 23rd, which they reviewed the proposal that you all saw today and just voted on. So those are the 3 committees that went ahead and met this last time since the last meeting.
Okay, any questions for Christina regarding the committee meetings?
No, but I do want to say thank you very much for your hard work and dedication to this board. You do everything. Even way more than the attorneys, and you didn't go to law school.
We're having rules upcoming. Do we have some dates for that?
We don't have dates. We have a couple on hand that you gave me, but we do not have a final date yet, but we will have a rules committee come up in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Thank you, Christina. All right, item 16 is results of the quadrennial rule review. And I was naive to think that this was going to be our lengthy discussion of today's meeting. So, woo. Robert, take it, please.
And I will make it as brief as possible.
And Robert, the majority of the I think like all of the rules here that are proposed are just rules that are redundant elsewhere. Is that or they are sort of like unenforceable?
Yes.
Is that kind of what we're looking at?
Yep. And so the report you have there, what I'm asking for is your endorsement, approval of that these are the final findings. This vote right now is not an action vote. It is just closing out the rule review process. I'll quickly go through these slides. They are almost identical to the ones you saw in the initial findings. I'm going to skip over this first section of provisions needing to be repealed because those we will talk about in just a moment have been brought to you for repeal. And so skipping all of these, though you did get some public comment on pretty much all of them that was included in your packet. The other section are provisions that we've identified for standardization across all of the boards to at least have that conversation. Again, same topics we already talked about, court-related practices, just ensuring that we are limiting ourselves to the practice-related rules and not interfering with the court's jurisdiction. Military-related applications, that we treat all military service members the same. Board meetings and committees that are just internal operations are a little smoother. And then telepractice, that we have updated and considered use of terminology and made it clear in our new modern times how people handle telepractice. There were just a couple of amendments that we will not bring to you today, but as we open up these other rules, we will clarify small things like that a signed consent form is not required in a specific circumstance, or this language here about keeping records 5 years after the date the client reaches the age of majority. That means 23. We can just say when a client is 23. Things like that we will clear up as we open the rules. We'll bring those to you. I'm going to skip them for now because they will come to you before we propose anything. And so that, to clarify for the board, but for also everybody listening again, all of this is just our intention, our findings, our priorities. Every single rule change, whether it be a repeal or an update, will come to you as a specific proposal to go into the register like every other rule.
Robert, just adding to that, can you give everyone sort of a preview of the timeline, like when, based on what we do today, when the next step will be and the next step after that?
Yes, so affirming this today and proposing the repeals that we recommend as necessary, those we would expect either to be adopted at your January meeting, or depending on timing of getting it into the register, your next spring meeting, late spring meeting. We would probably expect then to see another cadre of rule proposals at that next spring summer meeting. We will try to group them, and instead of every single meeting bringing you one here, one here, one here, we'll try to group them and get you packages to look at. And so probably it'll take another 1.5 years to get through everything on this list, if not more. But the big priorities will be bringing you proposed rule language probably next summer, is what I would expect.
Okay, thank you.
And so the last group is where, for the public, all of your comments and ideas that you sent in were given verbatim to the board members, but I've also included them on this list of provisions to be considered in the future. And so there's a couple of slide pages with all of these rules. Again, we will sit down with the rules committee and talk about all of these issues, go through all your comments, and come out with potential changes if there need to be any. There may not be any. So.
And Robert, I'd just like to say real quick to the public, thank you so much for your engagement in this process. It does mean a lot to us. I do read every single one of them. I don't want to speak for Steve here. He's a little lazier than me. But I do read every single one of the rules that you submit, your suggestions, your thoughts. We greatly appreciate them. So please keep them coming. I don't know what I don't know. So I love learning and I love hearing your thoughts. So please keep participating.
So I will be explaining each of the individual proposed repeals, but I'm also happy to answer any questions about the rule review process or findings as a whole. And if there are no questions, I just ask your endorsement of this, a vote to endorse the final findings.
I move to endorse.
Yeah, I'll second it. Any discussion regarding these specific aspects of the results of the rule review? Go ahead, Dr. Bradley.
This is probably a redundant question, but you've made sure that it looks to me like these are more cosmetic changes, but you've made sure that they don't go against any operating procedures or anything like that.
Correct.
So they've all been checked.
Okay. Any discussion regarding the motion? Hearing none, we will vote at this time. All in favor of endorsing, is that what we're calling this? Endorsing the proposed
Approving.
approving the proposed repeal and amendment changes in the rule review. We can do them all together, right?
Well, so this would be a vote just of 16, not 16A. This is just that PowerPoint I showed you. And then I'll walk through each of the A items very quickly, and then you can vote for those in bulk.
Okay, so all in favor, please raise your hand and signify. Okay, that is unanimous. Go ahead, Robert.
All
Now,
right.
Robert, be
so-
honest with us. How much fun did you have with that PowerPoint?
So much fun. So much fun. Getting to do 5 of them. And I really hope I didn't make any mistakes. All right, so I'm going to walk through these proposed rule changes. You can vote to approve. So what we're asking you for these is for you to propose them to the council, that they be then proposed as rule changes in the register. If you have any questions about any of them, I will happily answer. And if you do not wish to approve any of them, you can take them out of the bundle. The item I in your agenda, repeal of 681.44. This is language on drug and alcohol use that there is already a provision in an earlier rule that covers this, and in fact covers it more effectively. So this was simply a redundant rule. For everybody's consideration, with this repeal, we would not consider any change to the substantive requirement of not being impaired by drug and alcohol use. That would still be a violation of rules. Don't do it.
Just make sure that's absolutely clear.
Absolutely clear.
Thanks, Robert.
Robert, I just want to clarify that I'm reading this correctly. So we're recommending to repeal 681.44 because it's already in 681.41M.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm tracking.
The repeal in little 2 of 681.47 is assumed names, and that is because the use of corporate names or business names is governed by the Business and Commerce Code. As a board, we've never really regulated what kind of LLC or corporation people can form or what name they use. And instead, the operative rules that we would continue to have is that practitioners cannot deceive or fraud or commit fraud or be deceptive or mislead any of their clients or patients through the use of their business name or any other business practices. So that would still be a violation if anyone were to, through using a business name, confuse people into think they're something they're not. So those are the 2 repeals. All right, 681.37. They don't need to be individually unless y'all want them. Okay. 681.37 is removing a sentence that we don't have the jurisdiction to make about state law. It does not change our substantive rules at all. 681.41. Bunch of items on this. This is removing C and D are unenforceable as written because it would require us to prove the mental state of the client or the patient, and that somehow the license holder contributed or was responsible for that mental state. And instead, again, all of our rules still very clearly say that you may not make any misrepresentations nor benefit from misrepresentations or false beliefs within your practice. That would still be a violation, and we would prosecute that. $681.49 in advertising is a similar unenforceable restriction about taking advantage of fears or emotions. Once again, it would be a violation to make any sort of misleading, fraudulent, deceptive types of statements in advertising. $681.81 under the general academic requirements is removing a sentence that has been superseded by a BHEC Rule 882.11. Again, doesn't substantively change what we're doing now, just cleans up the rule. 92F, under experience requirements, is removing a redundant sentence that an LPC associate may have only 2 supervisors. Again, the sentence is already in another rule. We're not changing anything, just clean up. Almost done. 681-101 on examinations. This is removing 2 pieces of sentences, 2 pieces that are not regulatory sentences. They don't belong in a rule because they are simply statements about life as it exists, that it can be a national testing company. It is a national testing company. So this is just superfluous to the rule. Next to last, 681-204 is removing the conditional letters of agreement, which we do not have statutory authority to issue, nor have we done so in the past many years. So it doesn't change anything. We're just getting rid of it. And then last but not least is 681-205, the schedule of sanctions, which is merely updating the schedule of sanctions based on all those other changes I just mentioned. That's it.
Thank you, Robert. Are there any questions regarding these proposed rule changes? Okay, I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Dr. Taylor with the second. Any specific questions on a motion? Hearing none, we will vote at this time. All in favor of adopting the proposed rule changes, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to, again, to clarify for the audience, you got a chance to weigh in on those rules in the rule review process. They will be going up to the council, proposed in the Texas Register, and you will have 30 days to comment again. So you'll have a second chance.
Thank you. Moving ahead, item 17 is the board chair report, and in the interest of time, I'll keep it brief. First, wanted to welcome Sean to the board. Thank you. It's good to have you. Second, did want to just put a little shout out to Tim Spear, who retired at the right at the beginning of August. Tim was on board when I first joined the board, and over the years he became a pretty good friend. He's a good dude, and we will miss him. Would love to see him again if that would be possible, but it sounds like he is enjoying his retirement. Okay. The more importantly out of this report is the BHEC update. BHEC's next meeting will be October 15th, but at the prior meeting on June 25th, a couple things I wanted to point out to y'all. First of all, no LPC rules were up for either review or adoption. Second, this is a kind of a big one. We did vote to move forward with contract negotiations with a company called CE Broker, who will be in charge of maintaining a database for CE hours. And to be honest with y'all, I kind of felt like I was the only one who was kind of skeptical of this. But what it did come down to is having the ability for staff to quickly verify CE information saves time. It saves staff priorities. And my second question of why don't we build our own database is apparently had a $1.5 million price tag. So CE Broker is beneficial in 2 ways. We're reducing staff time taken to verify CE hours on audits, and doing so is not going to cost us $1.5 million. So after I learned all that, I voted for it. So Daryl, any update on that, or are you just going to wait till BHEC to talk about it?
We're still working on the contract development between us and CE Broker. We're still working on that.
All right.
Actually, Patrick and Robert are working on that.
Well, I'm glad that they're doing something.
Yes.
I'm just kidding, guys.
Chair, can you clarify for those who maybe weren't in that meeting, what that means to licensees in terms, like, it's not going to cost them anything?
No, CE Broker is free. You will have to create an account and you enter your CE information, and anyone at the staff level who needs to verify that information will be able to access it. Okay. No, there is no cost for it. Yes.
Is that everyone does that, or you do that when you're audited?
Everyone does it
Okay.
in case you're audited. Okay. And this is kind of an interesting one. We did authorize that staff make a funding request for various exceptional items. And these include funding for empty staff positions, some specific salary increases in an effort to retain, I guess, lower ranking staff, but are still essential. And we were making an effort to be able to keep them. Creation of an ombudsman position. Just very quickly, what the ombudsman would do.
It's a position that we want to use in the licensing division. It basically will serve if we get a log jam, if your application gets hung up for whatever reason, it will be somebody that you can call and they can get it unstuck without having to pull the LMP people off task, off mission. They can still be processing. You go through the ombudsman so that he or she can get you unstuck is the goal behind it. I've seen it work in like the IRS and other agencies, and it's worked. So we want to try it here.
And the last one, this one is starting to end up in news reports. We're going to request funding for the development of an alternative licensing exam for the psychologists. Psychology has reached an impasse with the testing agency that they use, and after discussion amongst the board, we voted to make an exceptional request from the legislature to fund what would be the development of a Texas-based test for the psychologists. And you're starting to, this is starting to come up in the news, and you may get some questions about it, or how that affects LPCs. And essentially it doesn't really, other than just the psychologists are our cousin mental health boards, but it does not affect us, but it is something that you should be aware of. It's going to get a lot of attention. Okay. Any questions from BHEC? Chris, anything to add on that? Okay. Patrick, Robert, Daryl, anything that you would want that I missed that you would want everyone to know?
No, sir. I think you
Okay.
covered it.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I'll just brag on Daryl. He wouldn't say, but just for y'all's edification, we actually found money to do those staff salary increases without having to ask the legislature for it, and we went ahead and did it.
Oh, okay.
They got those
Fantastic.
raises this year rather than waiting next year.
So when Tim left, we took his and we gave it to everybody else?
That might have been a little part of it.
Okay. Okay, great. Keep up the great work. It is, it's, you look out there, it's a perfect storm of employment challenges between how expensive it is to live anywhere near this city and the need for finding and retaining quality people. So keep it up. That's it for me. Let's go ahead and move on to number 18, our board administrator report.
All right, so staff do continue to experience high volume phone calls and emails. As always, we do ask if you can leave your email address in the voicemail, just a little bit easier for us to get back with you. One big thing that is exciting is the supervisor roster that we have. It's where you can go on the website and find a supervisor. It is now live, so you can go in there, click on find a supervisor. It's going to take you to the site to plug in by your city, county, and be able to find your supervisor. One big thing I want to pass along to that is it's a really good resource for supervisors to double check and make sure that your status is active and current. Also to associates, you can double check and make sure that your supervisor's status is still active. If you are gaining hours under a supervisor who no longer has an active license, you will not be able to count those those hours. So it's just a good reminder and just kind of double check on that. Again, there's lots of resources on our website. We've gotten a lot of feedback, positive feedback about the website and what we've been putting up there, but continue and reach out if you have suggestions or if you see something's incorrect or confusing, and we'll do our very best to get it updated for you all. Reminder for supervisors, just please be sure, make sure you're submitting your supervised experience documentation forms for the experience hours within 30 days of finishing or ending the supervision. It doesn't matter if you're the first, second, third, fourth supervisor. Within 30 days, that supervision form must be submitted for the experience hours. Reminder for renewals, 1 hour human trafficking awareness and the jurisprudence exam. Those are both required. Another thing I just wanted to share, I know a lot of people were really concerned or have been concerned about this 50% rule for continuing education. I did speak with the renewal coordinator and she's had no issues at all having to deny anybody CEs or anything like that. So maybe that can help ease a little bit of stress or relief that we have, stress that we have related to worrying about the CEs coming in. Application timelines, all of our applications are currently being processed for August 28th. We do have our senior staff member will be retiring, but we've already been in the process of training and all that fun stuff. So we shouldn't see any issues or anything like that, but just please be patient with staff as they're continuing to learn this new program. Lastly, I just want to thank the board members. I know it was a lot of material today, and definitely the rest of our team here, rules and just all that fun stuff. Thank you for your commitment to the board, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. And to add on to that, I'd like to always extend a thank you to Brenda for her organizational work today and for McGregor for making everything run smoothly on the technical side. We appreciate that. Any final thoughts? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. And the second from Miss Dr. Stubblefield. Please raise your hand. Board members, thank you for your service to the great state of Texas. We will see you again in January. We are adjourned.